Gonna cut that audio there. You can imagine what comes after all that. We've all seen the movie. Da 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 da.
Wars, nothing but Star Wars. Give them to
Flying
me.
letters in space.
I am ready. Now's our chance.
Bombing run.
All right, hello everyone, and welcome to yet another year of holiday specials, showing off a lot of what we've been working on for the last year. We didn't have an anniversary stream this year, so this is the first of our cons for the last. We're not actually going to do another one in the next couple days, but I am Corey. You mostly know me if you've been on this channel before, but what you might not know is I don't make the whole mod. I make a small part of the mod. And today, like the other cons, is the chance for all the other devs to treat you all to their presence, let's say, and give them they can have a platform to talk about the things they've been working on. So whenever people say like, oh, Corey's mods, they're wrong. EaWX, because it's not just Corey. I get too much of the credit, and if you want to stop blaming me for stuff as well, that's also possible. So if you all want to do like a whole crush of hellos, all talking over each other.
Hello.
Hi.
This is
Yeah.
horrible.
Release us from the basement, please.
Well, let's not say too much.
Oh,
You'll be back in the solitary room.
I really
Not
need
yet,
to
anyway.
mute the stream so I don't get the echo.
But today we're going to be talking about previews for Revan's Revenge, Fall of the Republic, Thrawn's Revenge, and maybe something else? I don't know. You might have seen the thumbnail. I guess we're going to start off with some Revan's Revenge. You've already seen 2 of the mission intros, or I guess 1 mission intro and then a mid scene from the same mission. So, Leo, since those are generally your work, you want to talk about what people have just seen?
You know this really awesome novel that everyone loves and no one ever hated since existence? It's called Revan, and this is based on this. I know everyone hates it, but it's technically lore, and I mean, we have to respect it even to a degree. So it tries to bridge the scene where what's the name of the Sith Emperor again from Thor?
Vitiate.
That idiot meeting Mandalore and trying to convince to attack the Republic. The goal was to have it a bit vague, so it's not like evil master manipulator saying you have to do this now, no agency whatsoever. But this is basically the idea, and trying to set the tone for the era. And it was funny as hell having Animus stat Vitiate, even before we actually had some of the other Kota relevant shitters.
So what Leo is very kindly trying to say is that one of the fun things we get to do with EaWX is we get to take lore from all of these different places, and even if people don't like individual sources as much, we have the opportunity to bring them together in a game where some of the details don't matter as much, and that's nothing, no lore is stupid in Star Wars. That's ridiculous.
I mean, nothing will be ever as ridiculous as trying to map out the Kota timeline. Oh.
Hey, chat, when is Saul Kareth effect?
Yes.
Oh gosh.
Hey chat, when was the
Obviously,
Star
this is
Destroyer
why we need-
introduced?
Yeah, 32 BBY, obviously, alongside the Executor.
So the models you're seeing in the background right now, you can see a mix of stuff that you're going to be playing with in mostly the first release of Revan's Revenge. There is one ship, the Sortie, that I don't think it's made it in yet, but
No, it hasn't.
Yeah, we were holding up for gunship stuff.
yeah, so it's hopefully, maybe, we'll see. But we are in the middle of the beta process for Revan's Revenge. There's still some things that we are finishing. So I'm just going to say up front now, there is not going to be like a secret download link at the end of the stream to play Revan's Revenge. But testing is mostly going well, so we are not far away. There's some indigenous units or independent forces units that you get to play against, like this Rakatan Annihilator, which will be on a couple planets. But for the most part, we've been focusing on getting core rosters for the Republic, Mandalorians, and Sith ready. So do any of you have any particular things that you're looking forward to people getting their hands on in Revan's Revenge?
Probably the Harrower.
Okay, Keelhaul, shut the
Honestly, the Sith ground roster is one of the more fun ones, just from like an aesthetic point of view. Like
And a
everyone who
gameplay-
worked on those did an amazing
And a
job.
gameplay point of view, the
Yeah,
Sith Ground
like,
is just so much fun.
They flow really well from both a gameplay and design.
While they won't be playable right away, too, all the hut ground stuff that's got in like the War Droid and the Jur and Zalis for space are really nice things for flavor. At least as far as like from mod this early in release to have like things you can actually interact with.
And they're tour stuff, so they are
Yeah,
obviously
for sure.
I don't know. Some of the
Yeah.
Republic ground heavy vehicles are quite fun to deathmatch with.
So
Yeah.
one of the later editions that we've done, or more recent editions we've done, is the Heraclon. It's like a cargo ship that you've seen in Knights of the Old Republic, and then there's a bunch of variants that T78 and Os were working on. So for various applications, whether it's like cargo missions or different roles within fleets, there's a few different things we're able to do with them. And they're really good stocking stuffers as far as rosters go if we want to keep the holiday theme up. So like right now it's okay, I did a bad job rescaling that one. But they are currently the tenders for the Sith and Republic. They'll also be in the cargo mission, like the Hunt convoy mission. and there's a few other places that will be using them, especially with independent forces to help kind of flesh those things out. But yeah, we do kind of going off of what Keel said. One of the questions from Pacifist Elmo here is, are there any plans to ever add SWTOR content to the Revan's Revenge era? Or to Revan's Revenge?
And there's plenty already, even.
If
Yeah.
you mean like in general, yes, already. If you mean Harrower specifically, no.
Yeah, so like as far as having stuff set in the Tor era, that's 300 years later, so like the mod isn't going to, like we're working on the KOTOR period right now. If we ever did do Tor stuff, it'd be either separate Galactic Conquests or like separate mod, but it's not something we're focusing on. However, SWTOR is a viable source of information. So there are things in Tor that have been around for 300 years, and then we can kind of backport them, or like if there's huts that are alive, they live a while, so you can kind of extrapolate some information from that. There's also like concept art that we've used. The Republic Warwalker, a kind of ATTE style thing, is in Tor, but there's concept art for it that looks older, so we turn that into a ground unit as well. And there's Darth Scion.
This leads into my favorite thing about this mod is really trying to turn up every stone for the most horrible lore and to make up the hero rosters, because there's
So
some
true.
really deep dives. Fighter heroes, for example.
Can I talk about my favorite hero? Can I talk
Otis?
about my favorite hero?
Feel free.
No, EaWX. So EaWX is the best example of this. So in Tor, there are daily missions where you send companions to planets to just go look for things. And one of them was just this Duros ace pilot from long in the past who had a named squadron. And I'm like, okay, so one of the big consistent elements of the Mando War is the Battle of Duros, which is where a bunch of the Revan Kiss get like radicalized to join like, you know, the war effort. So I'm like, oh, what if we just use him for a Sith fighter hero? And NMS loves it.
To be fair,
So true, bestie.
it's not the hero that is in Tor. You just excavating the wreckage of a fighter, and the assumption is that it's his. So it's really horrible how deep we had to go to make up heroes, because it's depressing.
It's the best hero.
No, it's invigorating. Especially we have to do so much research and care and passion to put it into this period. Oh, and also Karis is a fighter hero, I guess. I'm a dumb asshole.
I like Foray.
My favorite is Otis, this one guy in KOTOR 2 you convinced to join up with another freighter, and you have to get a job, and now he's an actual fighter hero.
We're selling this mod so well already.
At least ship-wise, there are a lot more things than people typically think there are, like backgrounds of Tales of the Jedi and Knights of the Old Republic comics. Like, we have a lot to work with there. Not as much as some of the other eras, but more than people tend to initially think. So we do have plenty to draw from for the rosters in the future. But again, the goal was to kind of just get what we needed for a baseline playable mod. And then hopefully it wouldn't be too long between 0.5 and 0.6, and we'd be able to get focus on fleshing out those rosters a little bit more. I really like the Sith Slayer. It's so cool. It's got the buzzsaws and stuff. It's great.
It's just so wacky.
One thing we can also mention is how much GCs and story stuff we also already managed in for a 0.5 release. I think 4 GCs, and if I might be wrong, but for the Mandos it's like 10 or 12 missions alone, so it's quite fleshed out. Even I think it's more than the base game campaign even.
Yeah, so I popped up the historical campaign layouts that Leo put together. So these are the kind of the story oriented ones, just like in Fall of the Republic. The goal with the historical campaigns is to have them be like, you can go from one to the next. You'll have a bunch of missions throughout them, and the Mandalorians have been kind of the focus for it, since this release is focusing more on the Mandalorian Wars.
One thing that's really impressive, and it's also something we want to do in FOTR eventually, because it dives a bit into the alternate history road, but if you win the Mandalorian Wars, you get an extra GC that you can unlock that way. If you win the previous ones, let's just focus on the core, where you attack Coruscant, have missions around attacking Coruscant, the ground and space, and even the Jedi Temple, I think all of those will be later showcased, including Vic's brand new awesome Jedi Temple app. I think you can talk about it later as well. It's a concept we want to develop because in FOTR, if you play the historicals, you'll notice there's...
Wow, spoiling it for the people.
Wow.
Okay.
I can't believe
Also
you
say
do
something
this.
about it. Grief. It's a really cool thing that we have going. You're really evolving throughout the war and have all those different corners. And GC is focusing on different aspects.
But yeah, it's a fun way to give more of an alternate ending to the war.
Yeah, because if the Mandalorians just lose and then you're playing as the Mandalorians, then if you win, then it doesn't really make sense. But now you can, all the worst people on the internet can live out their power fantasies. Thank you for giving them that opportunity.
Hell yeah!
I mean, we have the worst people on the history on the team, NMS is right here. Like,
Agreed.
You made him a team member, so it's your fault.
Well, it's like, yeah, and the CIS fans too. So basically, just the two worst groups. But
Ignoring the Imperial fans, how hateful.
It's like you all
Supremacy.
are
Not yet.
equally bad.
yeah,
I like how we're
it's
putting the Mandalorians.
it's
as
nice
worse
so
than the
that
Sith
instead
here.
of kind of just like in this like taking half the Corps' shipyards and then immediately getting kicked back out to the Outer Rim.
I feel like with the Sith, there's a bit more self-awareness. With the Empire, no. With the Sith, yes. With the Mandalorians, But yeah, so that's kind of what's coming up with Revan's Revenge. The historicals are focused on, like we said, the Mandalorian Wars, the Jedi Civil War, and then Dark Wars, and all that stuff will be coming later. For the progressive maps, you'll be able to start in either early or late Mandalorian Wars, early or late Jedi Civil War, and there will be content from KOTOR 2 or the Dark Wars that you can progress into, but that's going to be like fairly bare bones right now, just as we kind of get set up with all of that. But there's a few more things to look at in this section that are somewhat related to Revan's Revenge. You'll see some more mission intros or missions and cutscenes, cinematics, whatever you want to call them, over the course of the stream. But we will go to what I have lovingly titled the odds and ends, because I wasn't sure how to group these things otherwise. But we have, first, some of the planetary shields that show on the galactic map now. Just a fun little effect on top of what they were before. If anyone would like to say anything about these? I mean, it's kind of self-explanatory. Let's say that.
They're pretty.
The hexagon version is only in Rev.
It's
Yes.
spherical.
Okay, yeah, Rhino's right. We can tell the story how bugged this shit was at the start.
It
and
was, yes.
No.
It was pretty funny.
There was a problem. Like, the system it's using just a galactic level model. There's a tag for it. It's quite simple. But for some reason, every time you entered a battle and left it, the model was ported in the middle of the map and just
As
stayed
featured
there.
on my New Republic playthrough, I believe.
Oh, yeah. And we just couldn't figure for the shit out of it what happened there. And eventually it was just adding one simple tag that was quite horribly named. Is GC center or not or something? Or is background or not?
Is this the same bug as what led to all the stars being replicated over and over?
I think it's
and over
related.
again? Until you had like a super black hole in the middle.
Yeah,
it was a fun time.
I think that's a related bug, but not quite the same thing.
The Empire, the game sucks.
Oh, there's a question here that I think NMS you'd be able to answer.
What?
Well,
the HR rep, so that's going to answer itself right there.
Why isn't Ryan joining the call? Shame on-
Only room for one German in the call.
All right,
He
so
Or
doesn't
two
we,
with
speak
Milo.
English.
we keep going through
Quitting
this.
the team.
There's something
What, have we
that
already met our quota?
Mord has been working on, or Mord's done this release cycle. Unfortunately, Mord was not able to be with us. Mord is no longer with us.
Yeah, I can explain this though if you'd like.
We're working on a more 2.0, don't worry.
Yeah, feel free. NMS.
Yeah, so Mort has done a really cool thing where in each of the mods, he has set up a system where game scoring can tabulate like a unique ending based on certain conditions. You see here, this is for CIS in the case of where if the Republic goes Order 66 but is defeated by the player Huts, for example. So it can has set unique conditions for being beaten by different factions, or whether you have a shipyard or a galactic conquest victory, or whether it's a regional or a historical GC as well. So there's a lot of variation. More did a lot of work and like just both coding and like just writing out flavor text to this, which is really cool. Unfortunately, couldn't be there to show it, so it's really cool to show off here. There's ones for TR and Rev as well.
Yeah, so
Also, it's
we'll...
now-
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say it's now actually possible to hit the top ranks with score, because a lot of the scores got redone to make a lot more sense.
Right here we see a case of where your GM, but if Shruten and Kosh die and Grunger is your highest ranking Imperial left, Grunger will be designated as the leader in the end screen if you were being the corporate sector last. So the reference is the last defeated faction for the player.
And we have one more here that I didn't have when I set up the video for this.
Lazy Corey.
Well, that I don't send myself the content for this stream. You guys send it to me. Me not having it isn't a reflection of me. Let's be clear on that. But this is one of the Revan's Revenge ones. And so this is, I believe, Bastila as a Sith Lord, as the like Sith Master position. One of many fun things that Rule of Two can lead to, along with mostly framework crashes. That's most of what it leads to.
Yeah, of course.
Impressive, even correctly gendered with Dark Lady. We're so progressive.
We respect women in this server enough to make them evil, at least.
Since when do you respect anyone?
Properly evil.
All right, so the other thing that's kind of Revan's Revenge related, you're going to see it first in Revan's Revenge, but it's also important for the other mods, just given the themes of the era. Revan's Revenge is a good place for it to start out. We have, I should pause that. We have redone a lot of the generic Force users, so their stats feel so much, like just as units to use, they feel much better. They are not the trash they were before, so they fit into a couple different subclasses, depending on the faction you're playing, the area you're playing. There's a few different models and lightsaber colors and stuff that should also help identify which ones are which. But yeah, so they're useful now.
It was really fun to do, and Leo did the like work for the kit bashes for these, and I helped with the statting of them. So they even have the see here, these are the Rev Rivera ones using the Kotora robes. In Coruscant, they'll have like the more standard ropes for there as well too, but the class will remain the same.
Yeah, the images, I overlaid them, like they're not lined up. They're in the order that NMS sent them, but he didn't have these as one image before. I put them as one image. So you can blame either one of us for not having the blue on the left.
I'll blame you.
I'll blame NMS.
I'm glad people have really picked up on the important part of what needs to be talked about on this. Because once you're in game, actually, fun fact, those tooltips will not just be showing up under them at all times, so it won't be something we need to fix.
Nice thing to say as well is that the Jedi will randomize between their heads they have. It's all still humans for this release. We want to do alien heads next release, but the setup exists, and they also randomize between having one or two double lightsabers. Same for the Sith guys. I think they even have slow chance for violet sabers.
Yeah, there's a low chance for purple sabers, I think, except for the Marauder and Assassin.
And the three classes for the Jedi are split between robes, so it's easy to identify them.
We don't have unique ones between the Sith, Marauder, and Assassin yet. Hopefully it'll be something we can do down the line.
Yeah.
Plus they got cool abilities.
I'll also say now, there is a Q&A page on the stream that you can ask questions in. If they're just in chat, they'll probably get buried. If there's something that pops up that's particularly relevant to what we are previewing at the time, then I'll pull that question up at that point. And then towards the end, depending on how long we go, because there's a lot, we'll be able to potentially take some of the other questions, or we'll do some like other Q&A opportunities. But there is one question here that is related to Revan's Revenge. Can't answer quickly. Are the Sith Troopers from the Old Republic? Are they from Knights of the Old Republic? KOTOR. It's period appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
But with that, we are going to go to another mission preview, and then when we come back, it'll be we're going to do a mission preview. There's going to be another mission preview, but not the kind you're thinking. And after that, we'll be getting closer to some of the later era stuff. So enjoy.
Enemy forces ahead! Yes. Standing by. Moving to position.
The weakling Jedi who scorned me will soon be erased from history. The Force is not a shield to protect the useless. The strong survive.
I sense your presence. Have you come seeking vengeance? Oh, how I wish Katarn could see this.
Yes, Master. We will defeat the Jedi and rule the galaxy. Give in to your anger.
Hammerhead at your command. Cruiser reporting. Standing by. Ready for action. Moving out. Cruiser en route. Enemies in sight. Fire at will. Full power to guns. Preparing hyperdrive.
Yeah? I may be young, but I'm quick and plenty smart. Huh? My name's Mission Veo.
Your wish? Yes? I am Juhani. I must give you my thanks.
What? Ready? I'm Karth. I'm a soldier with the Republic. You do seem to be full of questions. It's rather refreshing, to be honest.
Yes? What can I do? I'm here. What are you doing here? How can I help?
Ready to serve. Yes, Master. Query. Is there someone that you need killed, Master?
That would be me, Jolie Bindo. Yes?
Yeah? What? Huh? My name's Canderous Ordo. I need someone I know can get the job done.
Neo Crusader on standby. Reporting in. Ready for action. We'll get there. Take them down. For Mandalore!
Saranin, on duty. We are receiving you. We shall tear through them. EXF running at maximum. This is the Raquel, copy. Behold Black Sword's fury.
The power of the dark side is what holds me together. The Jedi Order is finished. There is more. I can die 100 times and still I will rise again as strong as before.
The master must always be stronger than the apprentice. I cannot deny your resilience.
What have they been teaching you children in that academy these days? Oh, my.
You again. What do you wish now? Does it interest you? The Jedi deny their darkness, but we revel in it.
So the time has come, has it? I can only show you the path that will lead to power and superiority. What preconceptions has your mind been polluted with?
Yo, that was the VO section there. There's a lot of both new fan VO and source stuff to help the immersion of the period, both in Rev, FOTR, and TR. Mostly focused on Rev lately, but as you can see, I love the KOTOR period, so I'll make sure we get as good aesthetic immersion as possible, getting accurate to the characters, to their voices, in both the VO and also the, as you saw the GC menu earlier, the UI stuff. To really immerse players into this period more. I hope people enjoy it quite a bit, and it's been really fun doing it.
Also, you'll notice that some of them were... So for major characters, pre-existing source material is typically used, or even for some of the other units. But many of the generic units are done by community source VOs, so we have a channel on Discord where if you are interested in having your voice in the mod and you have a basic level of mic quality, then you can submit in there a sample, and eventually a van will drive up to your house. You get in that. No, I shouldn't say that. I'm not responsible for any poor choices anyone makes.
That's only if
in
it's
there.
Contract.
And depending on how much or when we need stuff, NMS or another day.
Sorry, you're confusing VO.
What?
Tiers and traits will be explained later on.
Yeah, there's a whole video about that. Don't worry.
Wildly speculate to your own leisure right now, but right now, I'd say just look at the class listing in there if you want a hint of what those correlate to.
It's literally 2 items on the agenda from now, so just hold on.
Yeah. People to have patience.
All right, so we are going to move on now to Victory's maps. We're going to have, I think, 4 different sections of map previews from the different mappers.
How can we handle patience for that?
Victory, feel free.
Oh boy.
Great information.
Just oh boy.
Oh boy.
Thank you, Victory.
Just overwhelmed by their own maps.
This is so wizard, Annie.
Yeah, so I've worked on a few things this release that I'm kind of happy about, and this.
You have to talk.
So
this first one is Empress Teta, which, if you may recall, was a map that was done in the last release.
Nope. I'll go back all the way to the start.
You're cutting out a lot. I don't. Can Victory hear us?
Did he mute himself again?
No, just cutting out a bunch.
No one can hear you. Okay, so that explains a lot.
Is this coming through
yes. Now? All right, we'll start
with
Victory
now.
Okay.
Just remember, guys, we're professional people.
No, we're not.
I'm doing this on very bad internet, kind of.
You're making the rest of us Canadians look.
So I guess we're looking at my maps now.
No, it's already on Charuba.
So we're starting with Charuba here. We'll go back to Koros Major after that. Any fun stories about Charuba you'd like to tell?
So the main fun thing here is this was a map I'd been trying to do for years. And the idea was always to look at a city world, not from you're sitting on top of the city looking down, but you're kind of right smack dab in the middle. So you're looking at kind of the mid-level slices of a city above and below you. And I think I pulled it off in a kind of interesting way here. And it really kind of merged this idea of Charuba for the Hapens is this cross-section of their sort of pseudo-feudal class system. And I think that was kind of a fun vibe.
I just want to say that sound you started off with startled me.
There's another question here
Sorry.
which we can address a little bit. Chedring's asking, how do you guys decide which maps are more open versus more channel-like and narrow? So the way it's supposed to be is generally more open with like limited use of channels in narrow parts. And then the mappers will generally join the team and make them as corridor-like as possible. Then Bob and I will yell at them a few times. And then eventually we'll get more and more open. That's usually the process.
Yeah, that tracks.
I find it helps to think of maps not in terms of how am I defending this base, but in terms of drawing spiderweb-like lines from point to point to point, and making a web that interconnects.
I know where you're going with this. I know where you're going with this, and I'm not happy about it. You're gonna do some Ty Brazan quote at the end of this, and this is all just building up to that. And I'm not having it.
You know I wasn't, but now
Our
I'm
web
going
of
to.
mapping never fails.
Just to spite you.
Everyone has a price.
So basically you want to think in terms of like how things are connected, because you don't just want one long path. You know, I did a whole video on it and it's like 17 minutes long. I don't think I can sum it up.
Everyone has a price.
Phil's got some good stuff discussing this, and it's a lot of looking at specific maps and trying to figure out where you want players to go, where you want them to have branching choices, and how you pull those branches back at the end so the players never feel totally cut off from their branches.
Like, for instance, having branching paths is good, but you never want like an infantry only path that's just really long and goes way out of the way, because they'll never use it. Infantry are slow. You're not going to send infantry on a slow path.
And you also don't want to branch at the start. You also don't want to branch at the start and then never bring those branches back together, because then you get scenarios where the player almost immediately has to choose and never is able to play other areas of the map once they make that initial choice. Which brings me to the next map we're looking at. That we just went past.
Okay, we'll go back to
Chorus. Yeah, sorry. Because this is one that is basically a complete revamp of one I had made in the period that Corey correctly described as new mapper joins the team, makes an incredibly narrow corridory map that breaks almost all the rules, and then Corey and Bob at you. And think with this one, I've sufficiently redeemed this map concept that it's in a much happier state. It's cool.
Like I think when people start mapping, they're usually approaching it from like, I have this idea for an area and I have this other idea for an area. So they'll make the two areas. It's like, oh, well, this is all going to be one map. So they'll draw a line between them essentially. And like, I think like the spider web concept Kilo was talking about is very helpful, but also at the start can reinforce that if you're thinking about the strands as a narrow path.
Oh, for sure.
Than like the map being a network of like, like what we've been trying to do more and more over the years is draw a good layout first and then kind of develop that into the map. So like make sure it plays well before you're doing anything aesthetic, so that you're not kind of getting distracted by buildings. But yeah, so Keelhaul does have a link.
And the original one here was very much and Keel's videos are really nice. But yeah, this one was too much. I was looking at some pictures of downtown Paris. I'm like, I'd really like to make a map based on Paris. And then I made it too much like Paris and not enough like an Empire at War map.
Do the Arc de Triomphe, the shitty intersection around it, the roundabout, the worst traffic in the fucking world. I hate it.
People steal everything from
No. That was a craft invention. That was the crafts innovation on
the craft canals lined with shit too.
So if it's based on Paris, are people urinating in the streets?
Let's move on.
Probably.
All right. Kuat.
I'm pretty sure that's most of Europe, Kill.
Kuat is just fun. I wanted to do a map that was the orbital space station rather than the planet itself. And
the Kuat map here is really cool. By
this
the way,
one's pretty straightforward. It's a bunch of like dry docks. You can see the planet as you're looking down below. And I think it gives a unique vibe to the planet.
Oh man, my little time. Yeah, it was nice to see my old Kuat symbol props come in good and handy here.
You can also let me know when you want to switch between planets as well. So.
Oh, absolutely. Sorry, Corey.
Direct me.
Yeah. So this is the newest. Oh, sorry. This is the newest map that made it in. I just got this in basically a couple days before I had to do all these submissions, and this is one that's been floating around in my head for a long time. And so it's based off a planet in one of my favorite Star Wars books, Star Wars Twilight Company. And it's effectively just this Imperial warehouse where it's a bunch of like cuboid like blocks on the surface that like drop down into like subterranean tunnels and housing districts just to store all the countless bits of material that the Empire is pulling together from all over the galaxy. And it's where like this is transferred from the periphery into the core. And so I really wanted to do this, and I'm quite happy with how it turned out, especially thanks to some new train props from Rhino that are absolutely amazing and you will see more of later.
Yes.
And for added measure, the other planet this really fit for was Skako in the core, which is the Skakoan homeworld. So I included a temple as a reference to one of the Visionary stories. And I think it's a nice little touch.
Did that last bit have the siren as well?
This one?
Oh yeah, it should have.
See the T-posing arm and dice art in the middle there. It's
No,
very cool.
it's a different rooftop. Never mind.
Yeah.
All right. Oversky?
Players will get this a lot of cool props in the next release. Yes.
Right.
So so this is a Broa Sky, which is pretty well known for its library and archives. And I thought this would be a fun one to almost basically do just a university campus, but in space. And so it's a lot of kind of, open boulevards, lots of like very generic copy pasted kind of housing, and then lots of wacky institutes and buildings all over the place. I think it's nice, kind of like Arctic urbanized vibe. And if we go through, you can see, I'm assuming that's some kind of like engineering building.
I'm assuming.
I don't know, I'm kind of pulling from I was just kind of pulling from like buildings I saw on like my own campus and stuff, and I'm like, what if I like sci-fi-fied this? And a little
You didn't
medical
think to ask?
campus.
Welcome to Vic Doctors himself.
But yeah, so it's a little trees, and so this is one that the next one. Sorry, Corey.
You want to go to
moving on to So Onderon was a really fun one because basically Leo was just kind of like, hey, I really want to do this for a mission. And I'm like, you know what? This has been on my list for a long time, but it was kind of the push I needed. And it was really about kind of bringing together a lot of very different sources of what Onderon looks like. Because every time an author looks at Onderon, they change something aesthetically about it in a pretty core way. Okay. And then on to...
Oh, also,
and so, yeah.
There's a whole new prop set that I think Colin made them all.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
So
those have been for a while, though.
Yeah, they've been in for a while, but this is
were
the Onderon was the intent when they were made, and now they get to be home.
I really like the way you did this victory.
And then, yeah. And then, so for Rendili, basically it's just the idea of the things that always stand out to me with Rendili is it's ruled by an arch-provosty, which implies like either like institutional, educational, or religious overtones, and then kind of for me also vibing together like the nature and city. And so I kind of pulled it together into some underground dockyards with looming sort of cathedral factories. And I think it turned out nice.
You can see in the background there all 5 or 6 dreadnoughts Rendili has.
Yes, I did include the canonical 6 dreadnoughts of Rendili. And then, yeah. And then, so Roche Asteroids is kind of straightforward. It's just a dockyard. It's inside, like, the asteroid belt itself. And then it pushes through into kind of like some staging grounds with a lot of earlier attempts at doing trains that might get replaced in the future.
Oh yeah, I guess the other side of
And
this
yeah,
is that Roche and many other space-only planets. Like, the preference is towards ground and space rather than space-only. Space-only planets tend to be kind of...
Is it?
Yeah, I'd say generally right now.
And
only
Roche to me was
Nebulae
always one
are
where
space only.
Yeah.
Yeah, space only is very rare, and like
And,
usually
like-
in like intersections are actually mechanically useful to have them. I'd say.
Yeah. And Roche was always one that, as primarily a GM player, bugged me a lot when Zinj could just knock you a space, because I like ground defenses.
Well, also because they're like actual livable settlements
Yeah.
on Roche compared to like Salagas or whatever.
Right, right.
Yeah, there's bugs everywhere.
I guess it's now an even better choke point.
But yeah. And then Sullust is one that it's a base game map. It had some issues, so this was kind of just a bit of a bit of one to go there, fill it in, make it look a little more like some of the new Battlefront depictions, because I really like how that does the planet. And so I think it ended up turning out okay. And it's kind of based around some of these mine facilities up on the surface. And so this is one of the ones that is more of a reference than anything. I was reading through some of Foundation, and I kind of just wanted to do Trantor, which is one of the classical Ecumenopolian fiction. So yeah, it's nice. And then, okay, so Wayland was a fun experiment in, again, aesthetics, because there are a lot of depictions of the planet. A lot of them don't line up. And I pulled from a few things. So here is one of the Outer Imperial Outposts from the Yahan Cross comics.
The best comics.
On the next one, I think, is the mountain, which I chose to base on the Bad Batch because it doesn't really contradict how it's depicted in the EU, and it's frankly just a nice look, and it's very visually identifiable. And then I think the last one is of the city. Oh, nope, on to the next one. And then, yeah, in a similar vein, Yavin 4 was fun to do. This is basically... NMS deserves at least as much credit for this one as I do, because this was a lot of me basically going, hey, NMS, can you pull up classical Battlefront 2?
Yes, I
So look
played
at
the map
there.
on an old game, and A Victory did all the work actually mapping, so it's basically 50-50 work.
Well, yeah, it's basically 50-50.
I should also say there may be some missing pictures, because I made a horrible choice this year, where I asked everyone to submit things not just in the Discord channel that I used to do, but also on the GitHub, because I thought, oh, this will be organized better because everyone's stuff will be together. It'll be great. But then the links from Discord expire. So for the people who uploaded it to Discord and then linked it somewhere or linked a thing they had uploaded before, the links no longer go to where they used to go. So all of them were dead. And if you upload directly on GitHub, then you have to do like 6 different things to make it download as the right file type without telling you that you don't have access to it, or turning everything into a text file that doesn't always rename properly into the original file type. So I think I got most of what everyone submitted, but a couple things might have fallen through the cracks.
Corey's the best team leader.
Yeah. GitHub also does just have a limit in general for uploading files, so...
I probably did pay for a lot of the things that were...
Oh, since I just noticed this in chat, the old Yavin mod is no longer in the mod, I don't believe. That was one of the ones that was slated to be cut. It
the new one is so much
speed
better.
Corridor.
It plays so much better. I will say some experience playing both plenty, and I'm sure many people will agree as well when they actually get down to it.
Well, the old Yavin map was from 2010, I think. So it is one of the ones that survived longest. I think my Obra Sky map that is still in the mod, it's going to be on other planets,
Still in
though,
Rekiad.
Is in the same age class. There's some changes I need to make that as well. But thank you, Victory. We had 35 out of X screenshots.
I think it was most of them, maybe.
All right, so we'll move on quickly to...
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Is there... Hold on. Wait. Is that a thing?
Professional development.
Oh, well, I didn't have the sound effect queued up for it. But now we have some infantry models. Many of these are I think these are mostly Sky's infantry models. But there's also some that Lord Zeiser did, who's been learning to do some infantry modeling and coming along quite well. But we got some new stormtrooper types. We got some new stormtrooper models rather. There's new like militia types. There are some things that I think you'll see a bit later. We do have a Skies Victoria. We have Alec. So this is that young man there. You may know him as Darth Malak, but to his friends at this point, he's Alec Squingessamarius. Squingessamarius, yes.
I don't like that I know that.
You need to get alive.
I don't like you either.
Darth Bandon, whose head ends up appropriately in a jar 300 years later. Not in the cool Futurama way. This one is one of Sizer's. The Brachus, I think. We got some Project Darkside.
Yeah, that's.
So these are Sizers. This is one of Victoria's militia guys. A lot of these pictures are the ones I had to go manually hunting through the history of Discord for, so I might have ended up with the wrong ones for some of them.
That's the Freedom Warrior for Rev? If someone's
yes, that's the Freedom Warrior.
Yeah, basically Antarian Rangers, but slightly different and earlier.
Maybe also used for less.
But in my Imperial playthrough as well, there you can see like the new base Stormtrooper. So there's model updates and new stuff. Got a couple versions of Kreia. There's Kreia no hand, but still not quite evil. There's a new Jarek model that.
He has a lot of hair in this one.
There's Lanu there.
Blender Kreia.
Yeah, so Kreia will lightsaber spin. They're not separate units.
Is that transport?
This is a militia.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, the Backwater Company.
Yeah.
And there's the mission model. Oh, and Sizer's pointing out, yes, the mutual credit for his models from his tutors. He was working with Oral, LaCakes, and Phil, or Mr. Hobo, as he goes by in our team. But I think we're still on the first run through this, so there are a lot of these models. But there's also the ones that were in, like Scion was in with the other Revenge Revenge turntable. So there's a lot of stuff there. There's going to be more coming up with the TR section and FOTR section. So that did include a tactical droid that just got made 2 years, or not 2 years ago, 2 days ago. Just got finished 2 days ago. Immediately after I told someone,
at least 2 years.
Well, it was immediately after I told someone in chat that it's not a priority. We probably won't get to it for a while. But then the next thing that Victoria posted in the Discord was that. So I thought it was because of that. I don't know if it was just a coincidence.
So if you want something in a mod, just annoy Corey with it.
No, I'm not sure that's the best way forward.
You gotta have enough Riz to do it.
True.
A modeler just has to be bored enough.
If that was the path of getting the unit in, we would have the MTV in.
No.
This
is about the Sun Crusher.
Yes.
We also don't have the CW AT-AT, so some people just.
The CW didn't pick up our show when we optioned it.
Really sad.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to publicly say here, I would love to make the Clone Wars AT-ATs. I just don't want to have to re-rig them and reanimate them.
It doesn't.
Completely fair.
I mean, if the model's there, then someone else animates them. That's always a possibility.
Technically true, yes.
All right,
yes,
so
question, Temple. Why isn't the MTV in?
Because I hate it, and apparently my hate for it is significant enough that no one else has tried to make it yet.
Because it was
I mean, technically, I think
the model does exist. But yes, Ranger's love of it wasn't enough to overcome everyone else's hate to a difference.
You'd think people would be a little more tolerant of others in this day and age.
All right, but there were some questions with the VO previews about tiers and traits. We have a little video explaining that now. And then the rest of us will be back to talk about things live in 10 minutes. It's a long video. Is finally getting one of the oldest mechanics in the Empire War Expanded mods is finally getting a long-planned overhaul. Today we're talking about the changes to how we're handling tiers and traits. None of this is a new mechanic, given we're talking about command bonuses and economic bonuses which have existed since the base game, but we made some significant changes to how these are determined and communicated in the Empire War Expanded mods, which should hopefully smooth out some of the issues with our old tier and trait system and be a bit easier to understand. But most importantly, this is set up to be easier for us to manage. Since the earlier, if not earliest, days of Thrawn's Revenge, hero command bonuses have been split into tiers 1 through 5, with tier 1 being the best, occupied exclusively by Akbar and Thrawn, and tier 5 being the worst, giving bonuses to the stats of ships under their command, modified by traits like Ruthless or Defensive, which help characters specialize in different areas. On the economic side, bonuses like Overseer and Admin have always reduced prices or build times, along with a bunch of other effects we've had from traits which we won't get into right now. But each of these sets on the economic and military sides had their own rough edges we wanted to smooth out. Despite being objectively boring and not hugely important, this is a project that's been ongoing for years now, but with the first release of Revan's Revenge, it'll finally make its way into the wild in the first iteration. On the military side, there were a few problems we wanted to address. For one thing, 5 different tiers didn't allow for the most granularity, and in many cases, the relatively large bonuses from traits compared to tiers could mean a character at tier 3 was actually as good as or better than a character at tier 2, or even 1 in many situations, and it's hard for players to know that without knowing certain numbers offhand. So traits should be a modifier on tiers, but they should be a bit more clear in what they're doing. Secondly, but no less importantly, there wasn't really a consistent starting point for how tiers should be assigned to characters. So some characters shot up and down the tiers based on personal feelings of whoever worked on them last, and then lower tiers tended to be treating as the default unless there was a particularly noteworthy reason to improve them, which meant tier reflected visibility as much as anything else in the lore, and there was a bit of an upper limit on how some of the factions which were less prominent in the lore could skew in their hero roster. There's no such thing as an objective way to find the quote-unquote true skill of a commander expressed as a set of buffs in Empire at War or any other strategy game, but what we have done is made things a bit more consistent at least. Instead of 5 tiers, there are now 12 tiers, with each tier bringing up damage, health, shields, speed, and fog of war reveal by 3%, although the specific numbers there may change in the future if we decide certain categories need to scale differently. The tiers have also been made more consistent with other systems in the mod where now the higher number is better and then tier 1 is the lowest. So it's 3% across the board at tier 1 and then 36% across the board for each category at tier 12. This keeps the overall bonuses within the realm of what they were before, while giving a bunch of extra room for us to maneuver and hopefully a lot more clarity on what each character is going to be doing. The way we assign a tier to a hero now is based on their rank. So if they're the captain of a ship, say, we would start by placing them at tier 2. If they're an admiral, that usually starts at tier 6. If they're that faction's equivalent of a supreme commander, they start at tier 9. Then there's a series of modifiers we check for the character. Do people in universe talk about them being particularly scary or talented like Thrawn, Wedge, and Akbar? That would get them a +1. Were they personally responsible for ideas that won an impressive battle? That's +1 as well. On the other hand, were they noted as being mad, incompetent, contributing personally to a strategy which impressively lost a battle, or were they known to only get their position as a political appointee? Each of those would bring a character down a tier. There's a maximum of +2 or -2 for a given rank, but that still means in a 12-tier system, there's a 5-tier range for characters of a given rank. Let's start, for example, by looking at Grand Admiral Thrawn and Grand Admiral Ishin Ilraz. Thrawn starts at 9 as a Grand Admiral, but is noted in universe as being a brilliant strategist, and we have plenty of examples through his career of battles being won through his effective use of different strategies. That means in-game he will be tier 11. Well, this is the logic for how we assign these tiers. Ultimately, the tier itself is what will show up in-game, not all the reasoning behind it, so you don't need to worry about this. I'm only explaining it so you have an idea if you're interested in how it all comes together. All you have to know is that Thrawn is tier 11. For Ilraz, he starts as a 9 because he's a Grand Admiral, but he's specifically in that position for political reasons, and he's noted as being an untalented commander, which brings him down to a 7. He's still a Grand Admiral, so there's still some value to having him as part of a cohesive command, but he's about as bad as he can be in that position, and that still puts him in a worse position than many just decently skilled regular admirals. We also are a little loose with this in some cases where the functional role a character takes within a faction is given a bit more priority than strictly the name of the rank. For the modifiers, I want to highlight that winning and losing battles alone isn't what gets you the modifier. Sulkang Law, for example, has a pretty impressive defeat in the New Jedi Order at Burleus, and that's the only battle we really have details on for him. But he didn't really think it was a tenable position, and he only did what he did because of his son War Master Savong Law. So in that position, Sulkang probably still ends up with a +2 as a noted brilliant tactician who everyone respects and whose loss wasn't really his fault, while Savong Law would actually be the one to drop from Borleus if he wasn't already going to drop from a bunch of other very bad ideas that he had. And these command ranks are assigned based on how a character fits within the command structure of a faction. So in Fall of the Republic, Jedi would get command tiers because they were acting as generals within the Grand Army of the Republic, but in the New Republic, the Jedi didn't tend to be integrated within the military except for specific characters, so Kian Farlander would have a command tier, other Jedi would not. It also means characters like Gilad Pellaeon will see a bigger change in their command tier based on more than just their kind of rough estimated experience like we used to do with all of his changes throughout the years in Thrawn's Revenge. So this is all stuff that was essentially there already, we just have a more consistent way to pick the actual tier now. These tiers will still be modified by traits, but traits will be a bit less impactful than the 10 to 15% swings in a single stat they used to be in some situations. Instead, they bring 1 or 2 stats, damage, speed, etc., up or down by the value of 1 or 2 tiers. These kind of command-altering traits won't be in for the first release of Revan's Revenge because we're still finalizing the whole list of traits, but the other more utility-centered traits will still be around. Stuff like Slavers giving salvage will still be there, Riot Inciters impacting local partisan loyalty in ground battles will still be there, and so on. You may have noticed though, I said there are 12 tiers, but so far we've not mentioned anything above 11. There's one further factor here: specializations. In some cases, characters will specialize in a specific category or type of unit. Say Wedge Antilles with fighters. Normally, Empire at War will only take the highest buff available, so if you have Wedge and Akbar's buffs are higher than Wedge's, Wedge's buff ultimately does nothing. But with Wedge specializing in fighters, he always gives an additional tier worth of bonuses to fightercraft, meaning Akbar alone may be a tier 11, but with Wedge's help, fighters are getting tier 12. Another trait which we're still working on is called Cooperative, where certain heroes will always be able to bring the overall buff in the battle up 1 tier if someone else is the primary commander. So they may not function as well as other heroes in a fleet on their own, but if they're brought in with someone who's a better overall commander, they're still going to contribute something useful. On the economic side, one of the things that was typically a bit of a problem with admin heroes was that they could really skew a campaign individually. A faction having one good admin hero with a bonus close to 20 or 30% would be moved everywhere, discounting everything a player was building. So having multiple heroes with those kinds of bonuses didn't make all that much of a difference if you were willing to move one of them around enough. The others would just kind of sit there, short of having them in 2 disconnected areas. And then if a faction didn't have them at all, they would be at a significant disadvantage. So to that end, admin heroes are being split into 2 categories, admins and agents. Admins will be bonuses at the higher level, and will generally include faction leaders whose primary role is economic. These admins will generally function as they did before, save that they will go a lot slower through hyperspace, meaning the idea is to plant them in one place, and they'll give a big bonus in that location rather than being a big bonus to everything you're ever going to build. So they're kind of like corporations that can still move and go to any given planet. Agents have smaller bonuses, but are as mobile as anything else, and their bonuses stack with admins, so you can move an agent around everywhere and get a smaller bonus to build time and cost. You can even put them on the planet with an admin and get an even bigger bonus. Some agents only impact a couple specific units, and those agents with their specializations are able to have an admin tier bonus, but just for whatever they specialize in, and that will be noted in their tooltip. Like with military heroes, the type of bonus that economic heroes are given depend on their rank and role within a faction. The long-term idea is to make the admin heroes buildings where you can reposition them anywhere on a cooldown immediately, and allowing us to do some other effects from them, like having a defensive expert who can act as an additional defensive station or something, but that's not in the near-term plans and it may be something that we never actually do. This distinction also helps categorize certain heroes a little more easily. Some heroes fill a mixed military and economic role, like Revan to Gelinus, who's both a Grand Admiral and a Grand Moff. With this split, rather than just being one of the best military and economic heroes all in one, they have one primary purpose. If they're meant to be a combat hero with a combat bonus, they can't also have an admin tier. Instead, they're limited to a smaller, but still more mobile, agent buff. Hopefully that helps you understand where we're going with hero buffs. Like I said, this has been in the works for a while. I think we first started talking about it in like 2021, and it will be turning up in its first work-in-progress phase in Revan's Revenge, before also appearing in Thrawn's Revenge and Fall of the Republic's next release, with some refinements based on feedback from the Revan's Revenge testing. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time. All right.
I believe you've done this.
So, welcome back, everyone. I hope that explains all that, how tiers and traits are going to be organized going forward. Again, most of that doesn't...
No questions.
Most of that doesn't really matter to anyone. That's just how we determine the number you're going to see in game. Like as far as the command tiers go. So you don't have to know like, oh, this person starts at this tier, then went up down by this rank with it. You don't have to worry about that. So there you go. But the next section takes us to Fall of the Republic, and we are going to start by looking at Era 4 Galactic Conquests. So in the progressive maps, there was one starting year that was missing before after we converted how the era starts work. So Rhino has set up some new maps for that. I don't know if there's anything you want to say.
Yeah, no, it was joint effort, me and NMS. Yeah, and I just think it turned out pretty well.
I really like this map, especially like there's a lot of plants you don't normally see. Like you see Zygeria in the corner pretty commonly. There's also that little banking clan holdout in this version of Gnome Galaxy Large and Jameis.
Yeah. There's also completely bombed out Humbrine in exclusive Era 4, so that's fun.
Mm-hmm.
Please
I'm very
play
happy
all
about
the
that one.
eras.
It's want to give a reason for everyone to play every map, like a little niche for everything.
So
we need to provide like a printable checklist with all the possible maps on, so people can put a little gold star next to it when they finish a map.
Well, we've talked about this before. I don't think we've ever said we were doing it before in public, but what I want to do with that is instead of selecting the era on the GC menu where you like have to go into the thing and like do the slider, which makes it seem like a secondary setup, have it so that the pop-up that's been set up to pick between like ISARD and the CCOGM, that's also where you pick like your starting year, because then nothing is really given like visual priority to the player over the others. But yeah,
we don't. You can't fit all the options for
Yeah.
TR into the pop-up though.
Yeah, because it isn't more than like 8 with breaks.
You might be able to do it 8 right now, but definitely not in the future.
When are you going to finish the Star Wars mod for Sins of the Solar Empire 2, like a release year? We aren't working on a Sins of a Solar Empire 2 mod, so we've never said we were. That one's an easy one.
Yeah.
Damn. Ascendancy, as people have been asking, is our mod for Sins of a Solar Empire 1. It's been out for a long time. There's other stuff we wanted to do, but the mod tools for the game are difficult to work with. But there is a question about the tiers and traits here that I want to address. So Pelion is asked now, No. Like Pelion pretty consistently would get +2 modifiers.
All the Republic Pelion,
which is
maybe.
still better than
Fall
nothing.
the Republic
Like,
Pelion is a lower rank character who's not going to have like the biggest modifiers, but like he's also not seen as that competent in that era.
he's just another guy.
That's what he is. It's that he's not seen as fitting in with the old Admiralty because he was a bit of a womanizer at that time.
Yeah, like he's gonna be fine, but like once you get up to Grand Admiral Pelion in the Imperial Remnant, like that's Supreme Commander plus like +2, so he's basically Akbar and Thrawn tier at that point. Like he's at least +1, if not +2, so he will be fine.
Basically,
He
it's
has
a mini version
robes.
of veterancy, because sometimes they will get better in their later versions.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
there have been multiple characters who go through different flagships as the game progresses. Now command tier will be altered a bit more by that as well. It's kind of what you can expect with that.
Yeah, I just looked on the hero sheet. He wildly varies between forms and mods. So.
Yeah, so as he starts as captain, he starts at lower rank. When he gets promoted to vice admiral, he gets decently higher. Then when he's supreme commander, he gets like tier base 9. So you see some character progression here too with that, which is a little nice side effect, I feel.
Yeah.
So Revan is saying in the video it showed Pelion at tier 2. So again, there was footage showing how it worked before at the start, and then it gets to the stuff that is like the planned elements of it. So when I was explaining what it was, I was showing what it was. When I'm showing, like, don't go digging through the early parts of the video looking for numbers on stuff. The way that we're implementing it is it's in Revan's Revenge for the first release, like I said in the video. It's being applied to Thrawn's Revenge and Fall of the Republic after we have the first release of Revan's Revenge out. So any in-game footage would not have... there's no one who can get you in-game footage of what Pelion's rank is right now. So
I don't think we even really have it that detailed on the spreadsheet.
Yeah. Because the way the spreadsheet works, there's a lot of stuff that changes, and then if all of it's filled out and something changes on the spreadsheet, then it all needs to be refilled out until I have like at least some more of the basic stuff solidified, which is why Revan's Revenge is kind of the test run for it. And then once we know what the edge cases are, what the use cases are for everything, that's when we go back through and we add it for hopefully 0.5. At least one of Thrawn's Revenge and Fall of the Republic should definitely have it for 0.5. The hope is that both will.
So Pelion is ass. Got it.
I can't put out the video I did talking about how Pelion was a fascist and now defend like that. It's a very compromising position for me to be in.
Play to the crowd, Corey. Play to the crowd.
But yeah, so that's the Fall of the Republic GC previews. And related to that, though, there is one planet that is on quite a few Fall of the Republic maps that's particularly relevant to the era. So our next map preview comes from Rhino as well, and it's Megiddo.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I forgot. Yeah, yeah. So this is
the map's so good, Rhino forgot.
No, I was just like, wait, what planet is between? Oh yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, so this converts from having all the platforms as props to having it as an actual texture. So all the underlays now work, and there's a little bit of a layout tweak as well, just to make it nicer. Yeah, it's not really that much of a change. It's just a very big quality of life thing for all the stuff.
So, we also do have a donation from Andre, who says, idea, planet to offer whatever faction a unique influence roster that changes based on what faction holds it, similar to a skirmish station. Is that possible? Like, you can make different planets. So we have influence units, and that's kind of the limit of how far we'd want to go in that direction. When we're making the factions, we want them all to play differently. And so I don't like doing... Like, oh, if you take Kuat, you have like whoever takes Kuat has all the Star Destroyers. Whoever takes Mon Calamari has all the Mon Cal units. The preference is to do things as faction like built around the faction, then have influence units as a modifier on that, rather than being like a huge change to the roster, but like closer to what you're saying, there is narrative elements like Mandalore, where you can have the Death Watch versus Protectors choice for the CIS. So that's kind of as far as we go with that.
And that's just that skin change too, not gameplay.
Something militia reworks, something.
Well, no, that's just a myth and legend.
We'll just have one every cycle or 5 per cycle.
Oh,
It's our hero, Brian.
I'm glad that Jorid is here because you can
Yes.
explain this.
Yeah, it's moving out. What do we got there? Yes. So that
Please don't threaten me.
is very zoomed in.
It is the it's kind of low res for you. It's the custom GC changes.
Yeah, so basically, this is just one of the many little features I'm adding to custom GC. Most aren't really worth going into a lot of detail about, but I did add the ability to have certain other groups of heroes attached. So the big event here is obviously the Warlords, where you have a whole bunch of different, little groups for legitimacy groups, or I threw Dark Empire in there. So you can start on a small start with Dark Empire's Meldrude or Imperial Kabito for Zinj or whatever, and it works by there's a planet with a bunch of heroes there. You throw the one you want to start with that represents the whole roster with your starter dummy, and then you get them instead of the regular heroes for the small start.
Planetary control achieved.
And slightly more Fall of the Republic related directly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we also got some new features from Petroglyph a couple patches ago that lets you pull up the names of the unit in scripts. So I figured that you could take this and you can actually set all the clone commanders, the generic clone commanders, have names that are pulled from anyone we don't use a main hero, like Doom is on there, for instance, remember, and there's a whole bunch of them. So I threw the name of a legion in with the name of a unit there. So you can zoom in on that. On the galactic level, you can actually see the name of the unit if it's on the planet, which is very convenient. And now, based on whatever name they have with a Legion name in there, they will be a commander for that Legion, and they'll spawn the Legion skins for that one. So it's a separate tier. All the regular heroes are above them. They're above the default choice, but you now get Legion commanders that can do 501st skins or whatever from your Academy at Camino, which is pretty cool.
And a second part to that.
Yeah, you can actually see it in action. Like this guy, you can see that their name is there and what legion they're associated with, and all their escort troops are there as well. There's technically a priority. It's higher tier commanders will override the lower ones, and phase 2 armor will beat phase 1 armor. So I just dropped them in the order that I knew they would come out with their own legions. But it works the same as the major heroes, where if you drop one, someone will have a higher tier and whatever. You'll get one set of legions or more if you have them at the same time. That was explained poorly, but it's the same as the regular heroes. It's just each generic commander has a legion with it, except the ones that specifically have no legion.
Petroglyph has done many things that we have asked for that we end up not using for years. So it's nice to have us actually do things with it.
Wow.
I still remember asking for the ability to get the name, just because I thought it might be useful if we then could make everyone individual, and then they just added the feature that we can actually track every unit individually and don't have to rely on the name, which was a lot more simple. And I don't know why we didn't ask for it right away.
Well, we did ask for it that way. Everyone else was asking for it that way. I don't know if you didn't.
I did ask for the name way when they fixed the names with the randomization, because I thought this might be useful. I don't know what I was drinking at that time.
Well, it was. I mean, I think it went the other way around, didn't it? Where it was they did the basic unit identification, then that was asked for on top of it. But
no, the names were done first. That's what
it is. It's a very handy feature that we can use for things like. The World Devastators to improve the way that they're coded.
Yes, I will get to recode that. I'll get to recode persistent damage. Half of the creative shit I've done in the last 2 years can just be made simplified and automatic.
And it
I've
probably
been
won't break
redundant.
as often.
Well, neither of those actually break that often. Or
It's true, actually. They're the more
those are
robust
very
ones we
reliable.
have. But
Wouldn't it say that we eventually also be allowed to build more than one inexpungible?
You can have
No.
persistent damage on things where there's more than one of them, but the issue with stuff like that tends to be more identifying like which is which on the galactic level. So say you have 3 of them in the same place, one's 100%, one's 50, one's 30. There's no way like looking at the units that you can tell. So it's
The question was more if we would do it, like if we were to allow a second one or not.
there's cases where there's per unit changes that aren't as easily identifiable where we're probably still going to do it anyways, but I won't. I don't think we're committing to any of them in particular right now, other than maybe the World Devastators.
Fair.
Because otherwise, you say something on one of these streams, and then people are asking for it forever. You can't. You gotta lower everyone's expectations.
Uh-huh.
The one's the harrower.
I'm banning so many people after this.
Is Hellion S now or not?
Hellion does have an ass. It's not featured heavily in the mod.
It's like a Hank. It's like a Hank Hill ass, I assume.
So Corey, we're confirming a Ray of Hope next, right?
Oh my god. Okay.
No, that's
we
Bane's
have...
Revenge, you idiot.
All right, we have
Moving swiftly
another
on.
we have another preview. All right, so that's I guess the majority of our Fall of the Republic section, and with a nice Order 66 mission that will not involve certain things that people ask for that we are not comfortable providing them with. So no. This does not, so that mission doesn't also happen if you do Order 65. That'll be...
No, that's just an Order 66 trigger. And yeah.
But it will come
You
with
get to have fun with Ladinair Torben instead. That's what everyone was looking forward to in this mission, right?
Sure.
Torben, the guy from the Acolyte?
Otterum GC.
No, well, no, different Torben.
No.
Crappy police guy.
But here we
Wow,
have...
also probably a Grand Moff.
Here we have some of the Thrawn's Revenge and Fall of the Republic models, including some Hut stuff that goes between all of them. So I'll let it play through a couple times, including some new CIS models that Victoria has been doing. So we have some Munificence, some Lucra Hulks, including Munificent Dreadnought dedicated model for a ship that I don't actually think it's not Dreadnought, it's Munificent
Heavy cruiser.
Heavy cruiser. Was that in 0.4 even?
It was done as an upscale of the same basic model.
But I don't remember.
Annoyingly,
Was the
yes.
unit itself in the last release?
Yes.
Annoyingly,
As a
yes.
Yeah.
As a hero.
It's just the one tactical droid hero.
Okay.
If in doubt, just make it bigger, and that's your CIS.
To sustain on displeasure, yes.
Victoria here is carrying the whole FOTR section, but along with Victory.
And two things, because they came up in the chat. Order 65, we have an idea for a mission you could do there, but it would be something different and involve Palpatine. And the mission will come with a redone Outer Rim Sieges GC, which was also spearheaded by Vic. That is a bit bigger and doesn't look like the current one.
Oh, I did forget to provide the map for that. Sorry, everyone.
That's okay. It'd be a surprise. We need to leave some things hidden.
Rip.
Yeah.
Well, we're probably going to end up doing this in June again, so it's just a question of what we get finished for TR and FOTR,
True.
whether they're actually out by that point, which hopefully yes, but who knows?
I think TR likely. I don't think TR, maybe.
Kind of depends. But yeah, so yeah, the defoliator, we don't know necessarily what that's going to be exactly. It's just Victoria did the updated AAT models, and then we have the assets for it now, so we can actually think of what we want it to do.
We have a concept plan for the defoliator.
It's pretty safe.
Obviously,
to
we have
that
to make every tree prop destructible, and completely redo every single ground map so that the defoliator can work.
All the old plans that every mod ends up with for like a month of like, oh, we're going to make every prop have its own passability painted, and then when you destroy them, they're gone, and then the map is dynamic. And then no one ever really wants to do it because it's not really that fun.
Yeah, I remember trying to do destructible trees about 3 years ago.
Yeah, I know.
It wasn't fun.
And just making the
Is the branch still
defoliator
there? Oh no,
only
just
damage
delete the branch.
tree is not that fun either.
Yeah, that sounds kind of hellish.
Vic, you're the Vic that's in chat, right?
Yes,
Which
I
Vic
am
is
the
Vic?
Vic that's in chat.
Which Vic is Vic?
I just want to make sure I'm not making a random Star Destroyer a moderator. You can't give random Star Destroyers too much power. That's how you run into problems.
Oh, I assume that was your little brother, Victory. I assume he was a great Star Destroyer.
Did you make Ryan moderator?
Ryan didn't want to be.
Oh.
Honest Ryan.
But yeah, so there are a lot of the HUD infantry models that File Raptor did. I think are these all post 0.4 or are some of them in?
I think all of these are post 0.4.
I think all of my stuff is past 1.4. At least stuff didn't make it in. Like I think they got posted in Admirals fairly early, but they didn't show up in the actual release.
There's one other HUD thing that I wasn't actually paying attention. I can't remember if I put it in this one or in a different video. But this one's my favorite. Saba Sabatine being on the Jedi Command staff is going to be a great day for me. Like, Saba and Silgal are the best members of the new Jedi Order. I love them.
Look at that special cape they have has to wear.
I love the Speed Scooter's design so much.
It's so stupid.
I can't even imagine how you would actually pilot that thing. Holding a gun, shooting, and driving at the same time.
Very carefully.
No Star Wars vehicle looks safe.
Ocean
To
never.
be fair, a lot of real life vehicles also don't look particularly safe.
Definitely not, but like with Star Wars, there's a lot of just being open and floating over the open world. Like on Coruscant, any regular speeder, scary as fuck. Any like family speeder, like the convertible that Obi-Wan and Anakin are in, that's also scary. Okay, this is
seatbelts.
This is a HUT version of an SSD, basically. So there is some more hut stuff coming up. I think there's like 2 or 3 ships that weren't in 0.4, including this one. And there's a helpful extra visual aid that Victoria has provided us with in order to better understand the size. So I'm just going to pull that up now. I'm going to hijack the Sith victory screen for it. So the current biggest hut ship is about like battlecruiser size, and this is this
a little
size.
bit bigger.
So not like an always accessible thing, but when you get far enough down, it's probably going to be like both empire and militarization being completed, but it's more traditionally SSD sized.
Does it have the feature?
The feature being a really big ship.
There's
Yes.
the other feature that it was postulated with. I don't know if the final implementation is intended to or will keep it.
Well, you can look at the bottom of the model if it's what I think you're talking about, Leo.
Mm-hmm.
It has the thing on the lower right corner, I assume.
It's got a little chin growth.
But that's kind of what it's based on, right? Is like it's the what if the other thing worked, and then there's the other lore behind it. So it kind of has to have it to some extent, but does it have to have it in that form exactly for gameplay? We'll see. But now we're being mean, so
We can't reveal it what we're talking about. I mean,
Technically, it
Who
probably
could
did
figure
work,
it out?
because we know the huts. We know they were building them by NJO, technically, mostly.
Bear in mind as well,
On
of
some
course, it will
scale.
not actually be that large in game because we scaled down all our SSDs just a little bit for gameplay purposes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it will still be huge.
It will still
and
be
incredible.
quite large. And we'll see how it holds up against world ships. But so
Pathfinding is a bank of ships.
people have asked for a long time if there is going to be a new Eclipse model, and I'm proud to say there's the new Eclipse model. So it's another sail barge for the hut. It's a different sail barge type. So thank you, T78, for finally doing it. People were asking for years if we'd ever do another Eclipse. And T78, if I don't know if you...
It's a total eclipse of the heart.
Yeah, Bonnie Tyler worked with T78. That's what the T in T78 stands for, is Tyler. But yeah, so the huts have... I think there's the Patalum Var that we have like the actual model for that will be in the next release. There's also the Boa Hulk, I think is the name we're going for the super large one. There's some consonants and vowels in the name, and I never remember what order they're all in for hut ships. And there's a couple other things as well on both ground and space that we've shown some of the models for, including this sail barge. But like one of the difficult things with doing the Sovereign and the Eclipse, even though they are some of the older models in the mod, as far as SSDs go especially, like the two we're using now, I think the Sovereign model that we're using now is the same one that we had in the 1.0 release of the mod. The Eclipse model was the one that was made when we started Ascendancy, so that's like 2010 and 2012. So they're older than many of the people watching. But like it's hard to do the Sovereign because like this is the only source image you have for it. So what are you supposed to do with that? Like it's just this side-on source book image. I forget what it's even from. It might be from like Dark Empire source book or something, but it's just the silhouette. So you don't have any other information beyond that. So like there's nothing we can do with that.
Yeah, we pretty much gave up, actually.
It's over.
Sorry, we're deleting Thrawn's Revenge.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, what's that color? What's that green?
Oh.
That's John Cena's music. So anyways, we've got new models for the Sovereign and the Eclipse. The Sovereign design is something that Farshot actually started a few years back, and then Osritzel has taken the inspiration from that And we have a new sovereign, one far younger and more powerful, with some actual cityscape on it, a lot more actual details going on. So that should look a lot better now. And people will be able to stop asking us to make new ones.
Mm-hmm.
So it's got more
instead they'll just
personality
be
than it
asking
used
us to release them.
They go in my chat reaction. People are very excited over this one. Oh my god!
So this,
No, I
both of
think
these should be in the
everyone's
next
underwhelmed.
release as well.
Mm-hmm. I mean, really, the Empire never actually built them, so I don't think we should let players actually use them.
Yeah, there's the other version.
One was built over BIS at the time already.
It was half built, but yeah.
It was in progress. Yes, just making props in the BIS map.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And at some
I guess
point, have
this one
R2D2
existed.
peep. Have at some point R2D2 peep, and they all blow up.
Yeah. Yep.
Speaking of R2D2, who's his favorite ship?
It's quite dark.
Mm-hmm.
They thought it was a ghost ship until it opened fire.
Should have turned on light mode.
Yeah.
Hi guys, my name is Eclipse, and I can open fire. Wanna see?
What the fuck?
What
The
is that?
Charmander? My name is Charmander. I can turn into a
Oh!
wolf. Wanna see?
Oh god damn it!
I feel like NMS, you need to go back and clip that and turn it into a soundboard option.
No.
Yeah.
It seems like exactly the kind of thing you'd love to press the button for.
So I'll also say all of these previews, they can be a bit harder to see on the box thing there and go through it. We have a channel in our public Discord where there's a level required. Actually, I think for these, we're just going to throw them in the news channel, so you'll be able to see all of them individually. And we usually upload them over the course of the next week, so you'll be able to see all of that. But there's also
long remembered.
So there's also some gameplay changes coming with the Eclipse. You won't be able to just jump in, immediately blow stuff up, and then jump out, because that got a little cheesy, especially with persistent damage. So there's a charge up time on the super laser at the start. Still very threatening, a little less cheesy. There's going to be some other tactical changes that'll make it matter more that you're sitting in a corner if you try to cheese it that way over the next few releases of the mod. But yeah.
Don't worry, we're going to add a USB port to it.
But which charger?
I think the Empire would probably use something heinous like Micro B.
Oh,
lightning port.
Really
that's
obscure.
truly cool. That's why it's the Dark Empire.
Yeah.
It's proprietary. It's proprietary. Right, but hopefully the Eclipse, as we see here, is everything people wanted it to be, of every type. So Eclipse and Sovereign as the X-Wing got replaced already, so I'm trying to think if anything is older than the Sovereign. Because the Sovereign is old enough that the death clones that Kalo made in the summer of the first release were still applicable. So I think it might have been the oldest model still in the mod. Even older than my AAT, which also got... Well, stuff that we made. Grievous is there.
Yeah.
Grievous and some infantry. So never mind. But these are some structure, props, and some other models that have been mostly picked away at by Rhino over the last little while. So I have compiled them all here. You can. It's very rude to look up the bottom of an ion cannon, so don't do that.
It's hidden in game. Don't worry.
Yeah.
I have to say, on behalf of the mappers, Rhino has done an amazing job at making stuff for us, and like it's really super amazing.
The best
he's
turret
willing
prop here.
to listen to us, and and deal with us.
Most of these just come of I'm bored, I'm procrastinating, or I don't like base game stuff.
Great reasons all
Valid.
around.
Yeah.
Isn't that the reason we're all here, really?
Wait, are you saying we can do something productive when we procrastinate?
It's a kind of procrastination.
Yeah, but then I procrastinating
Test
things.
Ranger launches Total War Warhammer 3. Yeah, there's the history of how a lot of modelers end up joining the team is they join with the idea that like we're gonna have someone who just works on props, and then they immediately like, you know what, props are boring. I want to work on other stuff, or they leave.
Yeah.
Or if they're calling, they make planet like entire prop sets for planets. But Rhino has also stepped up, and there's some more like building gubbins, I think I'm gonna call them, that are gonna be coming up that are dedicated props that are like little bits that people can put together to make whatever combination of urban assets for the most part that they want. We've got different textures for them all. I think I got all of the images for this, but I think between all the sets that you're going to see, each prop is at least shown, even if every terrain skin for each prop isn't. So we'll be getting. I'm getting defensive about it in advance when I don't know if I've actually missed any of them.
It's fine. But yeah, it was very much a great. I've done this one texture, and then other people were like, "Hey, could you maybe do it in this?" And I was like, "Okay, fine." It's like, "Hey, can you do it in this?" Okay, fine. Oh, and complete tangent. I like playing Jurassic Park. These offenses definitely not ripped.
The other props, the images I have coming up in a different thing, I'll put those at the end with the death clones as well. But
Yeah,
this
sure.
is the other thing that Rhino spent. I don't know.
Far
This is
too
why you
long.
have your conductor hat in Discord, right?
Yeah, I just removed it today.
It still shows.
It's
This is the greatest thing that has ever been added to Empire at War X, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, so I think I first started the train prop about a year ago. Went terrible. Tried again about 6 months. Went terrible. This time, finally, it seems to have worked. And there are far too many versions that I care to admit that I've made.
Yeah, we could probably create a train system for all of Coruscant with what Rhino has built.
Ooh.
So
yeah, we could.
These are
Yeah.
animated props. They're not units that are like you don't
Mhm.
you don't select the train in case anyone just I need to put
No.
that out there to quash any.
I actually love the vertical train coming back down just then. That was
Yeah.
that was very good.
That's honestly
Very
just
aesthetic.
amazing timing. Also, the trains are just purely aesthetic. They have no collision box, so nothing will be run over because mappers shouldn't be putting them in the middle of paths or anything. So.
Try me.
How funny it would be to have your infantry mowed down.
Yeah,
it's funny.
As a joke.
We could do that. Then what you need is little like crossing bars that come down and
Yeah,
flash lights,
yeah.
so that you know to pause your attack before you wait for the train to go by.
Yeah, but that sounds like effort.
Yeah, obviously all this took no effort at all.
Thomas, the train engine, its consequences are a disaster.
Honestly, this video was just really a fluke. I just happened to look at that bit when it opened. It was just a happy accident.
All right, and these are the
and these.
This is so mesmerizing.
Yeah, just random props because I was bored.
And these are wonderful.
This is the kind of thing that mappers get really excited by.
Oh,
It
yeah.
tells you a lot about
This
mappers.
is-
Okay, what I think I'm gonna move this one to the end with the death clones because I don't know if there's what you want to say about each one. I mean, feel free if you do, but
I mean, it's just here is prop. Enjoy. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
okay. So we'll do some questions while those in the death clones play. The death clone is like the ship's exploding, which looks really cool, but I don't know if there's as much you want to say about that as well. You can interject at any point when that's happening, though, too.
No, again, it's just hero ship. It dies. Cool, great. Yeah.
So for the Q&A page, I will be pulling from those while we go through some of the end videos. You do not need to submit the same question multiple times. That only makes it harder to sort through. Okay. So the next thing, I believe, we have another mission preview.
am ready.
All right.
I was too lazy to switch it to Coruscant for just filming.
Clearly.
Way to go. All right.
Can I still
Well,
figure out how to switch around the texture there and which bone to hide? Because I have no clue about UI, Lua.
I will help you with that.
Okay.
But
generous, Corey.
What I will currently do is help Keelhaul by pressing play on Keelhaul's maps.
Hello. Okay, so
I can
I
pause
made.
that if you wanted.
No, you can just let it run.
Okay.
It's gonna loop anyway. I made something like 20 or 18 maps, depending on your point of view, because it turns out Hewitt and Deluge were both actually in Thrawn's Revenge Point 4, and I forgot because of the timing, and they're both pretty obscure, especially Hewitt. Like, as far as I know, only one of you have actually managed to find Hewitt in all of Thrawn's Revenge Point 4. I was so obscure that I actually forgot it even existed, so that was a surprise to me. Deluge you might have seen, though. Comra was... well, I made a video on it. It's basically a planet right next to the Pentastar alignment that we can align with the Hutts, and that's kind of cool. Exocron, I wanted to do an airship map just to see if I could. And then I looked up, and then Nolan was like, hey, you should look up Exocron. So I did, and there's like this whole RPG campaign that was co-written by Timothy Zahn. And it's actually really fascinating and interesting, and I really enjoyed it. And I had fun doing the Exocron map. But then I found out that Exocron also appears in the Hand of Thrawn duology, which I completely forgot. So I reread the Hand of Thrawn duology, and it turns out it's garbage. Like, it's actually garbage. Like, it doesn't match the source book, the campaign Exocron at all. It's like the most boring planet imaginable, and it undoes all of the lore that was established in the fascinating campaign, because Zahn apparently can't remember what he writes. And the duology is not very good. It's like everyone's least favorite part of the duology too.
It's okay.
So,
just
anyway.
pretend that side of Exocron was on. It's a different hemisphere. Different.
But it's just
a different
so stupid because, like, I'm convinced in Exocron's backstory in the campaign there is a legendary possibly made up planet called Exo. And in the duology, Zahn kind of treats Exocron like it is Exo, like he forgot his own backstory. It's very convoluted, and you could say, well, this is actually Exo, not Exocron, except that he uses a character from Exocron in duology.
I thought an Exo ran the CSA.
The Exocron yapping segment.
XO.
The more you know, the worse it gets, basically. So, honestly, I decided that I'm going to completely ignore duology because it's not the greatest books anyway. I could forgive a lot of the faults, but Zahn goes into a lot of rants about other authors for doing things that he does even worse. So, honestly, if he's going to be petty, I'm going to ignore his work. Okay. Ferrari Junction. This one I actually started years ago. And I started just because I was like, haha, it sounds like Ferry Junction. So I was going to have the Wisps things that ended up in other maps on Ferrari. But then I read the actual comic and I was like, wait, this is actually really good. This actually deserves me to take it seriously. And so this is hard to explain, but I'm 90% certain that the story of Violert Valance, I don't remember how to say his name, who is arguably the first bounty hunter ever since he predates Boba Fett in Star Wars, was actually a story about a closeted gay man coming to love himself. Not literally, but the analogy is really strong if you read it through that lens. And I was like, this was written in 1978. Who thought of this? And it's really fascinating because, he hates himself for being a cyborg, and he kills other droids because he hates them so much. And he believes that he lives in a world where that hate is the only thing that can exist, so he has to enact the hate himself. And then he sees how C-3PO and Luke Skywalker love each other and care for each other, and it moves him, and he ends up betraying the Empire to save Luke's life, basically. And it's actually, incredibly well written for 1978, anyway. Floating Continent was basically another experiment. On a very much lighter note, and it's basically based on like every JRPG you've ever heard of. Where there's always like something floating in the sky. But I messed around with Sky's giant asteroid props basically to create a false ground beneath, and then I found these space lightning particles, and I put them beneath as well, along with the floating wobbling Sith structure things, and it looks really cool, I think. Iridonia is... So there's a lot of contradicting sources on Iridonia, but I ended up... It basically, one says that it's... But they're typically say it's very hardy, and that it's heavily urbanized. And so I also went with the acid pools because I thought that was cool and was good with it. But there's another source that it's all farmland, and I decided to ignore that one because it doesn't really match the other descriptors for it. But I added some grass for a good measure. So that's what I went with. Levian 2 is a blank slate that's pretty barren, so I just kind of went with like this idea of what if there were cenotes full of red rust water, and the only things growing were mushrooms. And that's kind of what you got from it. Polnei is another one that I don't know if I did a great job as a design for this map, but this was like one of my favorite sections from Black Fleet Crisis, so I've wanted to do this map for years. Black Fleet Crisis is a book that has some of the most chaotic, messed up, not well organized writing, but there are just small segments of that story, those stories, that are just S-tier writing, like the best Star Wars has ever had. And I think Plat Millar's escape from Polnei is one of the best things written in Star Wars that I've ever read. It's basically about like this one near-human alien guy whose planet gets invaded by the Yavithans, or the Duskin League, and 4 people managed to get into TIE fighters that were just left over behind, because that's their only ships that they have on the planet, and they've basically just been surviving on their own. And they see a Star Destroyer bombarding the planet, and they all die, except for Plat Millar, who, seeing that he can do literally nothing, runs away. And so he basically, taking a ship that has no hyperdrive, flies to the closest planet he can identify, which is Galantos, which is another map I did. And he basically sends footage, along with a recording of himself, on loop over and over again in the direction of Galantos, and then passes out from a lack of oxygen, where a New Republic spy ship finds him and secrets him back to Coruscant. And then a week later, Galantos gets the message and immediately goes to Coruscant and rings alarm bells everywhere, even though Coruscant secretly knew about the whole operation from the beginning because they were spying. And it's really interesting. I just really like that part of the book. Rennick, I did a video on. And it's basically a theorized made-up planet that's kind of based on something that did happen. But I had fun basically trying to integrate Geiger art with basically there's a stone fortress with technology on top of it, but then there's also some fleshy growth on top of it that's also decaying rapidly as quickly as it grows. And so it's like just really gross and horrific, and that was what I was going for. I did a video on it. Decivro, this was a complicated long story of how I started to make it, but the short version is it's based on basically just a swamp that is also heavily urbanized and has been for tens of thousands of years. And so it's got a lot of urban decay and a lot of fresh urban areas as well. So I kind of went with like kind of a mix there. And I kind of deliberately forced myself to not stick to a single theme other than vaguely the color red, because the planet's red from orbit. So I think it's pretty good. Voss was just an experiment. Like, sometimes an art map is just an art experiment. Like, I mean, sometimes they're just simple. I do like how I got the moon in the background, though. That's really fun.
One thing to look out for with that is the planet props in the background on a ground map can sometimes make the game crash if you look at it, so we need to be aware of that.
And I dare you to look at it. Okay, Oasis. I made a forest desert map one time for the planet Gurho near Suruvi space, and then I realized, where else can I put this? And then I realized we actually have a ton of planets that need desert forest planets, so I made generic Oasis as like a combination desert and forest, specifically for planets like that. Yeah, it's just a stopgap to fill in a hole that we were apparently having. Bestine, this is what the original underwater map was, but I misunderstood it, and it turns out that the lore here is complicated because, like, in one version, the cool version of the lore is that acclimators are built on the surface of the ocean. That's pretty cool. But in, like, the correct quote-unquote lore, it's the Empire's pretending to build acclimators on the surface of the water, but they're actually just doing biological research. And so there's no acclimators, but I think every other source tends to ignore that part and just say, no, they're building acclimators on the water because that's cool. So I chose to ignore it as well because let's be cool. I mean, otherwise it's boring.
Why not both?
Galadran, I did an Admiral's preview on this, but basically it's where Dooku confronted Jango Fett for the first time, and they had it's got like its own story and comic about it, but I based the map on the Eagle's Nest from Where Eagles Dare, the movie. So that was kind of fun. Fey Woods was basically just an art experiment. I tried to like mix colors, props and stuff, and it's not the best gameplay wise, but I think it looks nice and it's kind of fun. Bunta was fun because I was watching the Star Wars Droids cartoon, and I was like, one of these planets has to be in the mod, right? And it turns out Bunta is extremely prominent in the mod. So I watched the episodes with Bunta in it over and over again, and it was kind of fun. And I leaned into Hutt influences for it as well, which aren't present in the cartoon, but chose to add them here. And I will say, Droids is a fun thing to rewatch in hindsight because you can see how much of it influenced the prequels, like in way more ways than you expect. So that was kind of interesting. Dust Factory is another experiment. It was basically taking a bunch of metal props of space stations, world devastators, anything I could find, and just throwing them together and then making the whole thing over what looks like a giant sandstorm, but what it actually is a water level way below the playing area, mathematically mapped out, and it's actually the lava, but with the texture of brown clouds moving in a certain direction, then with a sandstorm on top of that, then with two more dust clouds on top of that, and it creates the illusion that it's basically a facility floating over giant dust clouds. And that's kind of fun. For the Droids prequel, like, there's a lot, but one thing is, Dexter from Dexter's Diner? There is a diner-owning four-armed alien that is big and gruff and looks vaguely like Dexter. There's Grievous's wheel vehicle. C-3PO's clumsy attitude is very reminiscent of Jar Jar. There's just a lot of different things. Darkon 3 was basically just, hey, this sounds like the word dark, and it's a blank slate, so I'm going to try to make like a sort of Halloween themed map. And at first I was leaning into kind of volcanic, but then I shifted to swamp, and I think it came out a lot better that way. It's just a very eerie planet, but I like how it looks. And I like that the water is sort of glowing yellow, and that there are yellow plants growing in the water.
Dark is in the name, so...
Yeah.
It's Darkon.
Kyle 2, this is funny because Leo was once talking about how we have so many plants we don't need, and he was like Kyle 2, and I was like, oh, I actually like Kyle 2. Because when I was a kid, I had a project to make like a bunch of hexagons together, and in them I put Star Wars plants I thought were important in like the 2000s. In the 2000s that I thought were important before Wikipedia. And so Kyle 2 was one of them just because it was in the Rogue Squadron game. I thought it was therefore very important, even though it only appears in the Rogue Squadron Nintendo 64 game. But, I had fun with it. And it's a fun fact, this is actually more textures than are featured in the Nintendo 64 game. because like when I looked at it, I was like, oh, there's only 3 textures here: metal, rock, and sand. And everything is just a jagged shape.
Yeah, it's the 90s.
Everything is
They
just a
got
jagged
6
shape.
bits.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is like an upscale of a Nintendo 64 level. So that was kind of
the
fun.
missile turrets. I mean, there may or may not be a missile turret turbo laser.
I don't know if they had missile turrets in that level yet, because it was still one of the like early teaching ones. I think it was just the turbo laser towers.
Thank you, Keel Hall.
But I also added a train to it, so that's fun.
Map clap.
Yeah. There is a 21st map, but I chose not to show it because it would only be impressive with a certain prop thing that isn't done yet. So, but basically it's a boat going down a river, with a hovering platform basically pirating the boat as the map. And I thought that was really cool, but it's not finished, so
I assume that will become as a video to your channel in the future.
probably.
Yeah, and there you also explain the story. So,
all right,
and that's all of them so far.
We have next up. We have the Empire of the Hand and the Chiss unit previews. So, first off, we'll start with the ground rosters. From left to right, we have the Chiss vehicles, then the AT-AT for scale, and then the Empire of the Hand on the right side of the AT-AT. So these are the untextured versions. There's some textured ones you'll see in a couple minutes, but the whole roster is modeled for both ground and space for both factions. Here is the Empire of the Hand space roster. You'll see some units you recognize and maybe some you don't. The Empire of the Hand stuff will be getting to government mechanics for them as well. Some of that will relate to the fact that the Empire of the Hand is made of multiple different groups. So the units for the Empire of the Hand are divided into those different groups. So that whether they're from the Chiss directly, like some of the designs, a fusion of Chiss and Imperial tech, like some of the designs are, and then there are a couple like local groups that are indigenous to the unknown regions that are kind of member groups of the Empire of the Hand. Some of those inspired by Thrawn's allies in the Thrawn Ascendancy trilogy in canon, because if we're going to make stuff up, it just makes more sense to pull stuff that Timothy Zahn has made up about Thrawn working with other local species rather than naming a new species herself. So you'll see some of the units there, like the Jiucha, the Baomu. They're in some cases entirely new ships for the roster. In some cases, there's some of the last redesigns we're getting to. But we'll go through. I think most of what you're going to be seeing is going to be the Chiss space roster. So all the Chiss units. The Chiss and the Corellians are probably the nearest to being playable in future releases. So here's some of the textured Empire of the Hand ground units. So the Empire Hand and Chiss have different texture styles. So some of the units will overlap between the Empire of the Hand and Chiss, but they will still have different variants. So this is one that was already on the roster, the Airstraker, but with a new model and texture. Typically, the Chiss are going to be treaded. The Empire of the Hand have like hovering variants of it, so that the Empire of the Hand emphasizes mobility over durability in most cases. So that'll be kind of the trade-off between the two factions, though they do still have like other roles within them. Not everything, obviously, is going to be one mode, but it's basically the emphasis per faction. Because we want to make sure that both factions play in a unique way, just like every other faction. But there will be some elements of the government mechanics which overlap between the two, or which, not overlap, but which point to the cooperation between the two and the fact that they are more allied than not. But here's the Chiss roster. So on the biggest end, the Intigo will be shared by both. The Syndic is shared by both, but there's a whole other slew of capital ships and frigates and corvettes that are not used by both the Chiss and the Empire of the Hand. Instead, they will. It's kind of like the Warlords in the Empire, where there are some elements of overlap, but they are their own factions, and both are worth playing. But here we have the turntables of all of the Chiss space units. Most of these are in the process of being textured. Mr. Puerto Rican has done several of them. Some of them have been textured for a long time, that they've been shown in some of the prior anniversary streams. And there's, I think, 4 or 5 new ones where I've put in the textured version after the modeled version here. But Oz has done all the model designing for the Chiss and Empire of the Hand, or all the modeling. So the original Intigo design was actually Valerie set up kind of the aesthetics for how their space stuff would work in the concept. And then Oz has kind of run with that for both factions. And Philoraptor is doing a lot of the texturing for the ground unit. So the ground textures you saw, those were Philoraptor. He's been developing the material sets that are being used for the different subgroups for the Chiss, for the Empire of the Hand, and then for the local indigenous groups for the Empire of the Hand. So they're all going to look different as well. So the Empire of the Hand looks a bit more eclectic since they are from so many different options, or from so many different sources. They'll feel more like a Confederation faction, kind of like the New Republic with like their mix of Mon Calamari stuff and then Dauntlesses and whatever else the New Republic use. I don't play this mod. So faction-wise, there won't be a new playable faction in 0.5, but the Empire of the Hand should have all of this new, all of the new space and ground assets. The Hapens will have a lot of the stuff we've shown off and some revisions to their government mechanics. So both the Empire of the Hand and Hapens should have a government mechanic for the Empire of the Hand, or revised government mechanic for the Hapens. So both of them will be kind of the main thing we're paying attention to, on top of some of the other stuff we've shown off, like the Eclipse, the new Torpedo Sphere, the Tiers and Traits. Those are all coming in TR and FOTR, but content-wise, the focus is Empire of the Hand and Hapens. They are finally getting the reworks that we have been wanting to do for years, started years ago. I think I wrote the overview of what the roles for the Empire of the Hand should be in 2021, but much like Tiers and Traits, took a while to get to. But yeah. So anyone else have any of their favorite memories from the Empire of the Hand to talk about? Especially Philoraptor. See, that's how most people have felt about playing the Empire of the Hand for the last few years. So this is the this release should hopefully give you a region, or give you a reason to play in the region.
I will say the Empire of the Hand from the ground up is pretty cool in 0.5. So
I think it's the same as 0.4, but maybe it wasn't because why don't we updated that like in 0.4, didn't we?
No.
Okay. Well, that will be better, hopefully.
Yeah, like I think the space roster for the Empire of the Hand right now, even though it doesn't have everything it's going to, is still fun. The ground roster, because it was so limited, units had to do like either double duty and be overtuned at that, or they were too good at the one thing they did, and then they'd become frustrating to play against, especially if you're a player who brings only AT-ATs because you like being inefficient, or you think that's actually how you speed through ground battles, and then you fight an MMT, and then you complain because you don't realize that actually using different units, varied units, is better. So,
or just throwing shade on our players,
or just medium tanks. You actually want to be efficient.
I'm throwing shade on a very specific subset of players. As your poll showed in the a month or two ago, most of the players use a good mix of units, and they would not experience such issues. But
it's true. I was very happy to see that.
Yeah, so the unknown regions will also over time get other like independent forces that'll be based on, say, the Vigari. Nuso Esfa is he's got a good chance of showing up at some point. There's, of course, the Killix coming up and the Siruvi as well. So the unknown regions are going to get a lot more fun. But step one in that is going to be making sure the Empire of the Hand themselves are up to speed with the rest of the factions in the mod. I guess the ground units for the Empire of the Hand are probably in that category of the oldest units in the mod, the Lego tanks exploding. So they've been in need of an update for a long time. There were a lot of cases where we were starting and then people who were involved ran out of time. They weren't able to do that when they wanted to. So it's kind of been a start and stop situation. But now everything is ready. There we go. There's still a couple more. But I will see if there's any other specific Empire of the Hand related questions in chat. Or Chiss related questions, not Chestins.
What's a Chestin?
A Chestin is a word that I made up because I
thought it was a Pokemon.
Didn't sleep as much as I'd like to. Will the Chiss and Empire of the Hand? So here we go. Another question from Cheddering. Will the Chiss and Empire of the Hand be minor allies like the CIS with their sub-factions? They will kind of. The exact way they're going to relate to each other isn't determined yet, but the main plan is for them to not be hostile to each other as far as Empire of the Hand can do that in a good way. So you generally will not be fighting against the Chiss as the Empire of the Hand or vice versa. Another question from Revenant asking, how exactly will the Empire of the Hand compare to the Maldrudan Hutts when it comes to mobility-focused factions? So, the Empire of the Hand is probably closer to feeling like the Greater Maldrude playstyle-wise on ground, or ultimately will be. That's at least the plan I'm going in with. How that ends up being in practice, we'll see, but a bit less tendery than like the heavy recovery vehicle provides for, and their infantry are probably a bit more of a focus, the Empire of the Hands. So David's asking, does the Empire of the Hand have a role like the Greater Maldrude is? Small ships versus Empire Ariado Authority being big ships, or is it more well-rounded? So every faction is intended to have a specific playstyle. Like, we don't want to have just super generalist factions other than the Empire and New Republic as kind of new player like factions, and even within that, we try to have restrictions on like which playstyle. Like, you need to pick something to build into, and especially on factions that have fewer assets, then building around a more limited playstyle or a more specific playstyle is usually the goal. But it's not so much about ship size. Empire of the Hand won't have an SSD, but it's more, they are a mobility and map control focused faction. But that, I think we'll leave it there for the Empire of the Hand and Chiss. We will go into another mission preview, which I think is the second last one. And then we'll be back with the last map set and Imperial Reign.
We've located the enemy!
All right. There we go. So, second last mission. Got
Two
one more
sentences.
coming at the end.
What you saw here is extrapolate. The battle exists actually, but it's also quite a reference to Tales of the Jedi, and basically trying to take revenge for the death of the prior Mandalore Indomitable. I don't know.
Mandalore the Indomitable, yes, and also
Yeah.
incorporate elements of the best story set in this period: the betrayal of Darth Revan.
Oh yeah. And it was a nice excuse to make an Onderon map.
And the hero there is one who doesn't actually. We don't know if it's the Master of Orin, but it's someone who wrote a scholar book in universe, and we just combined those sources.
Right, so one more set of maps from Leo.
Nothing major to talk about here. I don't think you can see it yet. It's still little A. But it started out as a map for Enoch, and then also Entrala, and yeah, it's red, quite red. Nothing major to say. I tried to have something quite red.
I was inspired by the color red, which I first encountered as a child.
Yeah. My mother is Polish, so the Soviet Union really shaped me, you have to know.
So you're an East German, I see.
No, I'm not. I'm West German.
Also, you're a Stasi agent.
No comment. And the next map here is planet called Obrikia.
This is the yellow one.
There's also brown, okay?
Did you see brown before or after?
The tan planet.
I'm quite monotone, okay?
Oh, I know.
Some people want to map a planet based on like a location. Other people want to do a map for every primary or for every color.
I would be lying if I didn't plan one for the color violet, so...
To be fair, you'll have to compete with Umbara for that one.
Heat posing hot, glorious.
That's just black. And yeah, the hologram is a nice addition by Philo, and same as the statues.
Oh, the statues. The statues are wonderful.
Oh, right, this map that had the possibility issue in Corey's playthrough.
Yeah, those stairs were not winter maintained, and it really messed with the HUD invasion.
I really don't know how that got in, because even the playtesters just didn't notice it. So it's NMS fault, technically.
True. Just to make you and Corey suffer.
Chat, if you think NMS is hateful, be sure to like.
Classes as props.
If you think NMS is hateful, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe.
And even if you don't,
do it
Just
anyway.
leaving a dislike on the stream now.
That's fine. It's still engagement.
Taking away my dislike now.
You clicked twice now. You're just clicking more. This it just even deeper engagement.
Spamming the dislike now.
Thank you.
I'm gonna get Corey banned for botting like on Twitch.
They didn't accuse me of botting. They accused me of stealing people's credit card information. Thank you very much.
I'm stealing your likes and dislikes
to buy all the Twitch subs that I definitely
don't spam
buy.
emotes.
All right. So we have one more gameplay preview from something else. Which I don't know. No one in the call has seen anything of this either. So this is
how exciting!
This is new for us.
I feel quite insulted right now.
What?
Oh,
thank you for not showing the last map and just freezing the screen.
Oh, I only had 8 pictures from you.
Oh.
So I'm the victim, okay.
Yes, you are.
This will
You
be
deserve it.
long remembered.
No worries, I blame enemies.
Poor Leo.
True.
You have insulted yourself.
One of the goals going into Imperial Reign, an upcoming Galactic Civil War mod by the Empire at War Expanded team, is to take the core design principles of EaWX and applying it to the Galactic Civil War period, focusing on changing gameplay rather than just making the mod be Thrawn's Revenge reskinned with fewer units. Part of that means dealing with smaller engagements as the default, with a current base space pop cap of 125. We'll get into some of the other implications of that and some ways that bigger battles will be happening with a future preview. But another thing that's key in the Rebellion era is a bigger focus on fighters, bombers, and interceptors. In particular, there's some pretty big changes coming to bombers and some smaller, but still impactful changes coming to interceptors. Many of these changes were inspired by one of my favorite games, Star Wars Squadrons. Fighters are of course your workhorses and generalists, and they work about the way you'd expect from the past in EaWX. They can sometimes contribute anti-ship damage with proton torpedoes, but they're most often used for defending against bombers or supporting your own bombers. Interceptors tend to refer to fighters on the smaller and faster end of the spectrum, aimed at attaining fighter superiority, but aside from some base stat differences like being faster in most cases, interceptors are being given a new additional function. Much like anti-fighter corvettes and the other EaWX mods, they have a passive point defense ability, allowing them to shoot down enemy munitions. This includes rockets and bombs from other fighters and bombers, which may be coming to kill them or allied ships, as well as capital ships, meaning interceptors play a pretty important screening role regardless of the situation. For bombers, there is a new major system, some of which will be expanded into other areas at some point. One of the most fun parts of Squadrons for me was customizing your ship's loadout with a bunch of different specialized weapon types and defensive options, and I really wanted to include some elements of that. Specifically today, we're going to be talking about customizing weapon loadouts. For each bomber type in your fleet, you'll be able to pick one of a few primary weapon loadouts to equip them with. These currently include 3 options: proton bombs, penetrating proton torpedoes, and ion bombs. Every bomber keeps its default proton rocket from the usual EaWX setup, so there's a solid baseline to the damage they're able to contribute, and then the main bomb type will significantly change what they're capable of. Proton bombs are the setup you'll know from Thrawn's Revenge and Fall of the Republic right now, where the bombers do a large chunk of AoE damage but don't bypass shields. This is generally the highest raw damage output. Then, with the penetrating torpedoes, you'll do slightly less damage overall, but you are able to snipe out specific hardpoints through shields base game style, and like with the Squadron's prototype penetrating torpedo. In areas where you really want to rely on your bombers, this is probably what you're going to be going with, or where you're looking to take out a very specific target. Ion bombs only do damage to shields, so compared to proton bombs, they do higher shield damage, while not contributing as much once the shields are down other than their proton rockets. But the ion bombs do slow the fire rate of enemy ships they hit, so even after the shields are taken down, it can still be worth keeping a bomber squadron on a given target, especially a capital ship. This makes the ion bombs particularly good for support roles in fleets where the carriers are supporting ships that are more focused on turbo laser or missile loadouts. So no matter what playstyle you're going for, you should be able to set up your bombers to play a key role in that fleet. But all of this, of course, only means so much if you don't know where you're going to get each bomber type. For one thing, with the scale of combat being smaller compared to our other mods, and with more ways to mitigate galactic lag from fighter spam, Imperial Reign is going to bring back allowing you to build fighter squadrons directly like the base game. But more importantly, you get to take more of a role in deciding what your own loadouts are on your carriers. Rather than fighter loadouts being a fixed thing, you'll have a primary and secondary fighter, bomber, and interceptor slot for your faction, and you'll get to decide which fighter types go in each slot out of any you have unlocked. Those choices are then what get populated on your carriers. The primary slots are more common and secondary are less common, so if you have Y-Wings and B-Wings unlocked, you can decide which one you want more of, whether you think they're more effective or you just think B-Wings are cute. And again, this goes on top of deciding the loadout each one has. So if you want Y-Wings with penetrating torpedoes as your most common bomber, and then B-Wings with ion bombs supporting that, you can do that, or vice versa. You may know from Thrawn's Revenge and Fall of the Republic there is a second tier of bombers, a heavier tier of bombers called heavy bombers, which are usually characterized by faster reload times. This includes the H-Wing or the TIE Heavy Bomber. These are available, but only in the secondary slot, so you can't have them be your most common bomber, and losing them in a battle will be a bit more costly. On the flip side, there are sometimes swarm bombers. These tend to be less powerful, although you'll get more of them. An example of that would be the Hyena bombers in Fall of the Republic for the CIS. For the Empire, different types of weapon development would lead to opening up more options in your fighter pools, while for the Rebels, broadening your coalition can also give you some other options there. That'll do it for our first look at one of the many ways Imperial Reign will be bringing Empire War Expanded into a very different era. I hope you're looking forward to it, although technically the mod is fairly early in actual development, so if you comment asking for a release date, that I can't do anything to help you. Thank you for watching though, and I hope to see you next time. Alright, there you go. First Imperial Reign preview. Now the Reddit threads can't say that they're sad that it doesn't exist and there was no mention of it in the anniversary stream. So there were some comments on the asserter being higher pop cap than the pop cap limit, and that is true. The executor is a higher pop cap than the pop cap limit. Wonder how that'll play out. That's for the anniversary stream 2 years from now. So wait for it.
At that point, we might actually see Imperial Reign with us, the devs.
So here's basically a 2-minute elevator pitch essentially for what Imperial Reign is and how that'll work. It's not like Revan's Revenge where we needed a specific set of assets for it to be viable. Like, we have all the models we need. I have all the models I need in order for a baseline functional version of it to work. And it's kind of just, there are a set of mechanics that I am working on that I will then be giving to the team and testers to try out. And it's kind of just a place for me to do things that I think would be interesting.
It's Corey's happy place.
Yes. It is, at this point, a personal project. And it'll stay that way until I have generally the mod roughly set up. So there's going to be like some placeholder icon stuff. So like the icons I used in that were not going to be what it is when it's done. I kind of just made that when I was setting up the mechanic, because there are a lot of elements in the mechanics that'll change as testing happens, as feedback happens, as I get sick of them. So you'll see more of that soon. Basically, I wanted to wait until Revan's Revenge was out to really seriously start working on some of it, but part of doing it that way is that I'm not looking to spend many years like hard baking a lot of these mechanics into the mod before people get to play it. I want to have the rough outline for a lot of those things with less polish, and then see how it all, like, make sure it all works together properly, which means getting it to people before it is too entrenched in what it already is. So ideally having a version that people can play sooner than later is the goal, focusing on kind of the period between episode 4 and episode 6, even though down the line, the goal would be to have the mod cover everything between Revenge of the Sith and Return of the Jedi and the Legends continuity, and Revenge of the Sith and the Battle of Jakku and the canon continuity, as there will be galactic conquests in the mod that focus on both. So kind of taking the core mechanics of Thrawn's Revenge, the core unit balancing and all that, and putting it in a different context where elements that people don't end up engaging with as much come more to the forefront and become like more obvious, so people are more aware of them also while playing the other mods. And there are probably some things in it that are being like tested, and if they are liked enough by everyone, we'd put them in the other mods and vice versa. So that's kind of where that all stands. But with that, we have the aforementioned death clones and prop structures to look at while we do some Q&A. So let's do the props. Rhino's props are coming back. and I will dive into the Q&A thing unless there's anything anyone else wants to say before we get to that.
No, let's give them 20 minutes. If we can get through the questions in 20 minutes, I think we're doing well.
So there are, let's see, there's 12 minutes of death clones, 2 minutes of props. So I'll be going through the Q&A section to pick out some questions. Let's see. Let's go with Yuzon Vong. So CCC asks, how long before the Vong? God been waiting for 20 years for that. So the Yuzon Vong are probably the last faction that's going to be made into a playable faction in Thrawn's Revenge. Personally, I'd hope that we get the assets in the next 2 releases, like the first setup of it, in the same way we kind of have like the Siruvi setup. They'll kind of go through 3 phases where they'll be just kind of in a few places to fight while we test out some of the unit mechanics. Then they'll become like a late game event as a non-playable faction. Then they'll become the final playable faction. As I'm assuming we're going to be done the Killix before them. Who knows?
Really, I think the Vong, more than any other faction, is strongly dependent on modelers with the skill set to do that kind of organic work, having the interest and the time to do so.
Yeah, Slever did the material set and the and like a style guide for it. He also did like the first models for it. So like the Killix and the Yuzon Vong have typically been Slevered and Inertial, and they're not as available. But we could also just release the Sith ground roster as Yuzon Vong, just make them coral covered instead of the darker Sith metals. And I don't know if anyone would notice, so that's another option. But we have an infantry model for them. We do want a new infantry model for them, but we can use the one we have, given the Gungan animation, so they can throw thud bugs. And then we have like, I think 3 or 4 space units already. So with that, it just becomes figuring out the core mechanics for the faction, because they will be very different from the other ones in how some of their tech gets
Corey,
represented.
you're yapping too much. We need to move on.
Please wrap it up.
There's only
Next
so many
question.
good questions that I actually want to answer.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
I've been yapping while looking through them to find stuff that we either didn't talk about or should talk about.
And what about my question?
Why wasn't Imperial Reign's preview shown on April 1st, as is tradition? Because if we get through the holiday con or the anniversary con and then don't show it off, then people, again, get angry on Reddit.
We need a reason to know Imperial Reign actually exists.
So, another question that you guys can weigh in on more, unless anyone wants to say anything about the Yuzon Vong. I know opinions on AI are divisive, but has the idea been entertained to make voice lines for iconic characters like Darth Vader, Thrawn, Tarkin, etc.?
Probably not. No, yeah, no.
No,
Because like we have base game Thrawn and like Vader lines. Like we have plenty. Those are weird examples too of all things, because like those have voice lines across media.
Yeah, and Corey does a.
And I saw it mentioned for missions as well, and we definitely would not likely be looking at using it for the mission intros. We have nice music. In some cases, we have really nice VO and stuff taken from official sources. There isn't really a good niche to use that there, or the desire to do so.
Yeah, like I don't hate AI as a tool, but I don't think we have any interest to use it for our mod as voice stuff. Like the power to you do, but yeah, like no interest in our end.
Yep,
you have to be really careful, because with using AI VO, you can really run the risk of, yes, it sounds like a person, but at the same time, it can be so uncanny, and it simply can't really sound like a human.
So
Because you're
regardless
Yeah,
of
in
anything
general,
about
it's
quality,
just-
I have no
yeah.
interest in using it in the mods. There were
Yeah,
places
no.
that we started
Mhm.
using it and then
I-
took it out intentionally. Like, I don't care how good it
Yeah.
gets. We're just not using it.
It's
Yes, we can also just look at the voice actor strike that's going on right now because of AI as well. So
Yeah, that's another prime example.
Definitely not something I
will-
would want to use in missions, especially.
I have no care for it. I will leave if we ever put it in and take all my assets.
I will say it is not a matter of
I know
the tools are.
I know what to do if I ever want to get Rhino out of the team.
I will say it is not a matter of the tools being hard. That's not why we're not using it.
Yep.
All right. Next
Yes.
question from Omega. Is there any plans to make these story missions also playable through the main big galactic conquests rather than only the smaller story dedicated ones?
Well,
Go ahead.
Depends
Order
on the
66 might have some fun stuff there. In general, I don't think the plan is to export the full roster of missions. But
partly because the larger maps are more of a sandbox
Yeah.
experience, which doesn't play well with structured missions.
yeah, and
can work, but they shouldn't take away from each other. Sorry, big after.
yeah, like no. That's exactly what I was going to say. Is that it kind of takes away from the focus of those, and it limits what you're able to do with missions and with like the frameworks that we use for stories. If you have to try to put it in that progressive sandbox, where they're much better when we can focus in and do them in a nice little contained environment where we can tell an individual storyline.
And it's also problematic because we don't do respawnable heroes, so we can't do
Right.
a lot of hero needs to stay alive for this to happen, move it to planet X.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't work this way. But if a mission is sensible, it can be included. Like Katana mission, Nightfall,
Within TR, yeah.
Geonosis, stuff like this can easily work. Even Starforge in Rev. I mean, I didn't bother to make a video about it because it still needs a bit of cleanup. But Starforge in Rev is definitely a thing. Malachor will also be a thing. And you can expect it where it's thematically fitting.
Yeah.
And following
But-
up on that,
Katana, yes, needs a rework. Sorry, just a small interlude.
Maud has fixed a lot of the back-end code for that. So it's in a better
gonna
place.
be
It's not great.
redesigned.
Yeah.
So the next question is: any plans for expanded hut campaigns in Fall of the Republic, following their own alt history path potentially? So story missions there.
I don't. Vic, did you?
Rescuing
I
stupid little baby
haven't
hut,
really
right?
thought of
Obviously
it.
a hut version of that.
I mean, theoretically, maybe Nighthammer is the place where they'd get a little bit of
Clearly we
storyline
need
as
the Darth
the-
Maul story path.
Yeah, like that would be the place if anywhere it would show up. But other than that, I don't believe
I'm
there's.
sorry, did you just say Shadow Collective?
Yes, Shadow Collective.
Yeah, genuinely.
Historical is our best hut GC story. Let's fucking go. Maul's Bizarre Adventure.
I mean, it is a.
It is.
Play G, an entire
It is.
GC.
It is.
Yeah, even buildable Mandalorian.
Yeah, but yeah, outside of that, I don't think there's any major plans there.
Maybe if we ever get really bored and don't have TR on our plates.
If
But,
we really
definitely
do
not
a bunch
sure.
of horrible memes, just talk only about Maul on the Wank
All right.
Fest on that whole storyline.
Ever plan on adding YVH droids in it?
We'll try to rapid fire some rather
Yeah,
than
probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. When we get to the
droids will
NJO,
probably be
that'll
in.
happen. Any chance, I'm not going to pop this one up, any chance that Raptor troopers get capes? Capes are difficult because they need an entirely different animation setup for a lot of stuff. I don't think that Sizer's new Raptor model has a cape, but
I think it's a little shoulder cape, maybe. Let me see.
Some of them have capes.
Yeah, there are a few capes, but it does take some animation work so they don't clip horribly all
yeah,
the time.
capes don't look great in Empire at War for the most part. Like, we
Okay,
have them
let me
on
look.
some of the Hapens, but
Mm-hmm.
Zane is not yet in Revan's Revenge. He will be in Revan's Revenge someday.
Down the line, it's a 0.5 release. Can't have everything good at once.
Yeah,
He
Zane
has
is
some
Zane is
some-
an
not
interesting
voice lines,
handling.
but speech lines right now.
Yeah,
He's his own faction.
Speeches and like text dialogue, not actual VO. It's kind of hard to VO for the guy we don't have.
The next question is from Halo Lore, who asks, is there a way to become some sort of tester in general for EaWX? So we actually have on our Discord, there is a tester role that people just sign up and they're given. There's a minimum rank you need, which is gained by just posting on the server, so that people don't just like join, ask for the test access, and then we end up having to do tech support for people who are literally only there to get access early. So yeah, that's on the Discord. They stay around between versions. And the Revan's Revenge beta is currently going on, so you can play Revan's Revenge if you want to help us test it by going to our Discord, and then you can become.
The Discord link is in the YouTube video description.
Discord.gg/CoreyLoses, a partnered link.
Yeah, so special. And you can also complain about Corey's videos there,
or don't.
Time to rumble.
You.
True.
Okay, next question is going to be stuff that we didn't already talk about. So Kirk is asking, will the Republic Donut be the biggest ship in the mod? The Inexpugnable will be the biggest ship in the mod for now in Revan's Revenge. There are some from Tales of the Jedi that are a bit bigger. That'll be in at some point.
Do love a good donut.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a shame that I'm the only one that can see this, because it's very difficult to dig through. I don't like this feature, actually. It doesn't
YouTube
even
fails again.
YouTube doesn't even give the option to like close out questions that are already answered. So like I'm just trying to delete messages, but it just shows up like any other removed message.
Republic Donut be the biggest ship in the mod. Yeah, probably. I don't think anything's better than
Alliance.
Oh, this next question's got an easy answer.
Are there any plans to incorporate characters, ships, and units from Jedi Outcast and Academy, Reborn, Cult, and Ragnos, etc.? Go to the first previews, I think, in the
the VO preview, and you will see.
And here, you'll see and here. True. And you'll be like, wow, it's like I'm playing Jedi Knight all over again.
Mm-hmm.
Also, you can go back
Can't
to
wait till we add
version
Rosh.
1.0 and seek out Katarn, but that's probably not what you're talking about.
Well, that way you could just play base Empire War.
Next question is from Spike, who asks, Sab is coming to TR, so what other Jedi will be coming to TR? Basically, the biggest thing for that is when models are made, so when artists want to make specific models. We did a poll a couple years ago for Fall of the Republic and TR on which Jedi people wanted. We're only about halfway through for TR, so Kip Durin, Tahiri Vela, Dorsk, 81 and 82, and Saba...
Probably Jaden Core.
Jaden also won that, so like those are the ones we're working on ideally next. Then in Fall of the Republic, the only one of the top 10 that we haven't done yet is Pong Krell, but Pong Krell is a difficult one. There was a related question about Jarek. Jarek being on the command staff. I don't know if he was really... Was he old enough?
He was on he was old enough. He was on an archaeology mission.
He was, but he's like service corps.
Yeah, he's... A lot of the Inquisitors were... Like, the Jedi sent them to live on the farm, literally.
Yeah.
So they weren't quite cool enough.
Corbin's kind of in the same boat where he is Jedi associated, but he's like, he runs the judicial department. He's not actually out in the field.
Like the best chance for a lot of the future Inquisitors that we have in other places would be something Order 66 related once we give up the idea that it's ever supposed to be any different and that we're not giving fucking ships and Jedi to everything.
Suffer.
Yeah. I mean, we could have like 13-year-old Jedgar. That'd be fine, right?
I was gonna say, like, there could be some fun stuff without really breaking that. But
like one of the nice things with the command staff stuff is that we basically have room for as many of these little shitters as we want, because they're mechanic limited rather than however many we throw in limited.
Mm-hmm. And if not there's always historicals. You know, they need exclusive stuff too.
And me and Leo love all the random glup shittos that exist.
Jarek and FOTR was actually a pretty popular question. Halo Lore asked if Trioculus was coming to TR. Trioculus is already in TR.
Is in, yeah. Unless he means Triclops, in which case
we're not based enough for
unfortunately, I'm not
Triclops
sure
yet.
we're based enough for Triclops.
Thank you for the donation, Michael. We do not have a hero list to announce, though.
We certainly could put Triclops in. I'm pretty sure he was a fighter pilot.
Triclops is basically just
for
a
the
prisoner.
rebels. He defected.
Not really.
He defected.
When he got away, then he leaves at the end. He doesn't stick around with the rebels.
He doesn't
and
leave.
the
He
implication is
just fades
is
to the background. I don't.
No,
I'm pretty sure
he
that
actually.
But yeah, whatever.
Please wrap it up.
Rothgar is asking any CSA news, nothing specific. They will get another visit on other government mechanics. Unit-wise, their roster is not going to change that much in life. It's really just down to government mechanic changes for them, other than some like Second Galactic Civil War stuff, like the, what's it called? The Quick Fast Frigate, whatever. Quickmaster 400 something? Chase Master.
Kondo, Assault Shuttle, and something else.
So, like, mechanic-wise, they will get some changes. Content-wise, they're not going to be hugely expanded. Another question, since it came up in when the mission was being discussed as well, was it intentional for the moon to be that close to the planet in the cutscene? Yes, that is Onderon and Duxon. So the whole thing is that they have like an atmosphere bridge, and then the Beast Riders come down and the Mandalorians come down, and that's a whole thing for them. So that's kind of Mandalorian or Onderon and Duxon's whole deal, is that they're very close to each other and it poses an invasion threat.
Well,
Think
yeah.
about the astrophysical implications.
No, for sure. It's insane.
It's the Force.
And or Final Fantasy VIII.
You should see Korriban and Tor. It's 6 moons. They're all very close.
Korriban 7 moons are a pre-existing thing. But yeah,
But
it's
like
funny.
you can see them like right next to the planet in orbit.
Yeah, that's just how Tor does moons.
I think we'll do. We have a minute more for questions, so let's go with this one. Any plans to add Umbarans? They are kind of top of the list for like what we do with militia and influence units. It's just they're very difficult to make. They're very wonky. So a mix of being like influence units and difficult, as cool as they can be, it kind of just comes down to when someone feels like they are able to do that. Where was the Hape stuff? The Hape stuff is not non-existent. I didn't show it.
Oh, okay.
We only have so much time.
Basically, Hape stuff is like unit rebalancing and like, yeah, mostly just unit rebalancing. I think
Nope, there's a bunch of new stuff for them as well. Like they have a bunch of new ground units. Some are also already textured. Bob just did 2 of the textures. They will be in the release. It's just I put together what people sent me for this specifically, and
Even
I
better.
didn't grab that one.
It was more just what's been shown.
But yeah, I think that does it for now. As always, discussions can and will continue in the Discord server if people have more questions. My dinner is continuing to not be cooked, so I was off by about an hour on how long I thought we'd be. So all the stuff that we've shown today will be available on the Discord server in the news section. Questions can always be asked there as well for stuff that people want or need an answer to. And thank you again for watching. Thank you to the team for existing for yet another year.
You're welcome.
Cool. Nice work.
Anyone
job,
just,
folks.
Be a day long remembered.
does everyone want to say something like inspiring? Did I?
No.
They won't be ready for me.
You can say something
or my
uninspiring.
plans.
No.
This is a small step for the world,
will be a day
but a
long
big for Empire at War.
It's great.
It's going to be great.
That's going to be great.
It's going to be great.
That's going to be great.
My actual inspirational thing is modding is pretty fun. Empire at War is a great game for modding. There are lots of other great games for modding. It's a really good way to get your foot in the door if you like the idea of game development, and it's also a really good way to be scared away from game development. But then do it as a fun hobby instead. Sorry, I was supposed to be inspirational.
It continues to
There
be
we go.
a pleasure and an honor to work with everyone on the team to do this absolute waste of time that has now dominated 2 decades of my life.
Wow, poor Petroglyph.
I am hard, Lord Malik.
Okay, well that's it. Goodbye, everyone. We'll
Really?
be,
Really? You had to ruin it with that one?
Really?
we'll be back maybe for another anniversary stream in June. They can be shorter if we do them more often. So I think the anniversary stream will come back. I was moving at the time, or I wasn't moving. I had just moved and I was very tired. So it was hard, Lord